Last anchor Bloodline. She was meant to be a curse. She became a home. Chapter 1. The valley is dying. Long ago, Dragon Queen Nuri protected the mountain. The rivers ran clear beneath her wings. Fields flourished. Villages prospered. Children laughed beneath skies untouched by ash. Then a curse arrived. No one remembered who cast it. No one remembered why. Only that the queen who once guarded the mountain became its prisoner. Fire consumed her. Year by year. Century by century. And eventually the people forgot their queen. They remembered only the dragon. Monsters were easier to understand than tragedy. The valley was dying. Alexis Damien stood outside the small cottage she shared with her great-aunt and stared toward the mountain. Dark smoke coiled into the sky like black veins. Every year it grew worse. Every year the mountain bled more fire. The crops withered. Streams turned bitter. The air itself felt sick. Behind her, the cottage door creaked open. "You're staring again." Alexis smiled despite herself. "You say that every time. And every time you ignore me." She turned. Elena Damien stood in the doorway holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. Age had bent her shoulders, but never her spirit. The old woman could still silence a room with a single look. Alexis accepted the mug. The warmth felt good against her fingers. Strangely good. Lately she always felt cold. Even in summer. "Look at it," Alexis said quietly. "The smoke is darker." Elena's expression tightened. "I know. It wasn't like this when I was little." "No." The answer came too quickly. Alexis noticed. She always noticed. The silence stretched between them. Finally, Elena sighed. "If we stay here much longer, we'll die." Alexis looked at her sharply. The old woman rarely admitted fear. The words landed heavily. "If we leave?" Alexis asked. Elena stared toward the mountain. For a moment she looked older than ever. "If we leave," she whispered. Then she stopped. Something flickered across her face. Fear. Real fear. Alexis felt her stomach knot. "What aren't you telling me?" Elena forced a smile. "Too many things." "Helpful." "I try." Alexis rolled her eyes. Elena laughed softly. The sound felt fragile. As if it might break. That night they packed. Not much. A few clothes. Food. Money. The old tin box Alexis kept hidden beneath her bed. The one containing her mother's final letter. The photographs. The memories. Everything that mattered fit inside a single bag. The next morning, they started climbing the mountain. The heat found them first. Then the smell. Rot. Ash. Something ancient and wrong. By midday, Elena struggled to breathe. Alexis immediately stopped. She pulled a faded scarf from her pack. Her mother's scarf. The last thing she owned that still carried her scent. Without hesitation, she tied it gently around Elena's face. The old woman squeezed her hand. Neither spoke. They continued climbing. As the sun began sinking, the village appeared. Smoke drifted through narrow streets. People moved quickly. Eyes lowered. Nobody smiled. It didn't feel like a village. It felt like people waiting for something terrible. Alexis didn't like it. Not one bit. Later that evening, after securing a small cabin, Alexis sat alone at the kitchen table. A single lantern illuminated the room. Elena had already gone to bed. The mountain rumbled. The walls trembled. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Alexis opened the old tin. Carefully. Reverently. Inside lay her entire past. 2 photographs. A handful of money. 1 folded letter. Her mother's final words. The paper had yellowed with age. The edges were worn soft from countless readings. Alexis didn't need to open it. She knew every word. She traced her fingers over the envelope. Then looked toward the dark mountain beyond the window. For the first time since arriving, a strange chill swept through her body. Sharp. Sudden. Deep enough to reach her bones. Alexis shivered. Outside, somewhere beneath the mountain, something ancient stirred. And for the first time in 32 years, Dragon Queen Nuri lifted her head, as though she had heard a distant heartbeat, one she had been waiting centuries to find. Chapter 2. The Awakening. The village woke before sunrise. Alexis discovered that on her third morning, long before the first rays of light touched the mountain peaks, doors opened, lanterns flickered to life, and people moved through the streets with quiet purpose. Nobody lingered. Nobody laughed. Nobody gathered to gossip. It was as if the entire village had learned to live beneath an invisible shadow. And Alexis hated mysteries, especially the kind nobody wanted to explain. She pulled her cap lower over her dark hair and stepped into the market square. The smell of fresh bread drifted through the cool morning air. For a moment she could almost pretend she wasn't living beneath a cursed mountain. Almost. By mid-morning she had collected exactly 3 pieces of information. The mountain was getting worse. The tremors were becoming more frequent. And every single person became remarkably interested in something else the moment she mentioned the dragon. It was enough to make her want to scream. Instead, she bought bread. And peaches. Elena loved peaches. The old woman acted annoyed every single time Alexis bought them, then ate every last one. Alexis considered it one of life's great mysteries. Back at the cabin, Elena was already preparing tea. Her silver hair was tied loosely behind her head. She looked tired. Far more tired than she admitted. "You're back. I bring peace offerings." Elena eyed the peaches suspiciously. "Those look expensive." They were. Alexis. They were worth it. The old woman huffed dramatically, then immediately reached for one. Alexis grinned. Victory. Later, while unpacking groceries, she finally spoke. "The village is strange." Elena's shoulders stiffened. That alone was an answer. Alexis noticed. Nobody talks about the mountain. Silence. Nobody talks about the dragon. More silence. Aunt Elena. Still nothing. Alexis crossed her arms. "You know that's suspicious, right?" Elena slowly set down her teacup. "Some things stay buried for a reason." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting." Alexis groaned. The sound echoed dramatically through the cabin. Elena ignored her completely. Years of practice. The following weeks settled into routine. Alexis found work at the carpenter's shop. The old carpenter rarely spoke more than necessary, but he appreciated hard work. Alexis cleaned, organized stock, sold furniture, occasionally convinced him to let her sand new pieces. The mountain continued rumbling. The villagers continued whispering. And Alexis continued collecting questions faster than answers. Sometimes she caught people staring at the mountain with expressions that looked disturbingly like fear. Other times she noticed strange scorch marks near the upper paths. Signs of fire. Recent fire. Far too recent. The mountain was alive. Of that she was certain. The question was why. Then June arrived. And everything changed. Alexis woke with a headache so violent she nearly fell out of bed. Light stabbed her eyes. Her stomach rolled unpleasantly. Every muscle ached. What the actual fuck? She stumbled into the kitchen. The cabin felt strangely hot. Oppressively hot. Yet goosebumps covered her skin. She filled the kettle and searched through Elena's collection of herbs. Rosemary. That usually helped. The tea eased the pounding behind her eyes. A little. Not enough. She stood beside the window while steam curled around her hands. Outside, sunlight bathed the village. Yet, something felt wrong. The air shimmered, almost as if invisible heat rolled down from the mountain itself. The sight made her dizzy. A strange chill spread through her chest. Then deeper. Into her bones. Alexis shivered. The cup rattled in her hands. Elena found her 30 minutes later. One look was all it took. The old woman's face drained of color. Lexi. What? Sit down. Aunt Elena, I'm fine. Sit. The sharpness in her voice surprised Alexis. She obeyed, mostly because Elena rarely sounded frightened. The old woman touched her cheek, immediately jerked her hand back. You're freezing. What? You're freezing. Alexis laughed. The laugh died quickly. Because Elena wasn't joking. Not even slightly. The old woman rushed to the hearth. Moments later, flames roared to life. Heat filled the room. Yet Alexis continued shivering. Her fingertips had turned pale blue. Fear flickered through Elena's eyes. Not worry. Not concern. Fear. As though she had been expecting this. As though she knew exactly what was happening. Alexis opened her mouth to ask. The room tilted sideways. Everything blurred. The floor rushed upward. Then darkness swallowed her whole. Sleep came. But it wasn't ordinary sleep. Alexis drifted through endless darkness. Weightless. Floating. Somewhere far away she heard a heartbeat. Slow. Ancient. Powerful. The sound echoed through the darkness. Boom. 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 The rhythm felt familiar. Like something she should recognize. Something buried deep inside her. Then came warmth. Not painful. Comforting. A strange golden warmth wrapping around her frozen body. For a moment she thought she heard a woman's voice. Low. Rich. Almost musical. Calling her name. Alexis. The darkness trembled. The heartbeat quickened. Then everything vanished. Far above the village. Deep within the mountain. Golden eyes opened. Dragon Queen Nuri lifted her head from her resting place. The curse burned beneath her scales. As it always did. A relentless fire. An endless hunger. A prison she had endured for centuries. Yet today something was different. The agony had eased. Only slightly. Only for a moment. But enough. Enough to make her notice. Enough to make her wonder. Nuri inhaled deeply. The sense of the mountain flowed around her. Stone. Ash. Fire. And beneath it all, something else. Something impossible. Cold. The dragon froze. Gold eyes narrowed. Then, for the first time in decades, a flicker of hope stirred within her. Somewhere in her mountain, winter had arrived. And somehow, it carried the scent of a human girl. Chapter 3. Greytant's Protection. Alexis slept for 3 days. When she finally opened her eyes, she immediately regretted it. Sunlight stabbed through the curtains. Her head felt stuffed with wool. Every muscle protested. Even breathing seemed like unnecessary effort. She groaned and pulled the blanket over her face. A familiar voice drifted from the doorway. Good. You're alive. Alexis peeked over the blanket. Elena stood there holding a steaming mug. You sound disappointed. I was enjoying the silence. Alexis snorted. The laugh turned into a cough. Elena immediately crossed the room and pressed the mug into her hands. Drink. What is it? Something unpleasant that will help. Comforting. Drink. Alexis took a cautious sip. The taste was terrible. Sweet. Bitter. Possibly illegal. She narrowed her eyes. What exactly is in this? Elena smiled. That was somehow more concerning than an answer. Alexis drank anyway. Within minutes the dizziness began easing. The pounding headache retreated. Her limbs felt heavier, but stronger. Alive. That strange dream lingered, though. The heartbeat. The voice. The warmth. She couldn't shake it. By the second day of recovery, Alexis was losing her mind. By the third day, she was considering violence. I need a proper bath. No. Aunt Elena. No. I smell like old blankets. Then smell quietly. Alexis stared at her. Elena stared back. The battle lasted several seconds. Then Elena sighed dramatically. Fine. Victory. Alexis raised both hands. Huh. Don't celebrate. You're still resting. After my bath. Resting. Alexis grinned. Elena rolled her eyes. The bath was heavenly. Hot water eased the stiffness from her muscles. Steam filled the tiny room. For the first time in days, she felt normal. Almost. Something still felt different. The cold wasn't gone. It lingered beneath her skin. Waiting. Sleeping. Like frost hidden beneath soil. Alexis frowned. She had never been sick like this before. Not once in her life. When she emerged wrapped in a towel, Elena was waiting. Naturally. Watching. Suspiciously. You know, Alexis said, drying her hair, most people don't guard bath doors. You fainted. 5 days ago. You could faint again. I could also be attacked by a chicken. Elena blinked. What? I'm saying both are equally likely. They are not. You haven't met the chickens in the valley. Despite herself, Elena laughed. The sound filled the cabin. For a brief moment, everything felt normal again. Then Alexis asked the question. The wrong question. The dangerous question. What are you hiding from me? Silence. Instant. Heavy. Elena's laughter vanished. Alexis immediately noticed. There it is. The wall. The same wall that appeared every time the mountain came up. Every time her parents came up. Every time the past came up. What happened to my parents, really? Elena's face tightened. Lexi. No. Alexis folded her arms. Every time I ask, you change the subject. Elena looked away. That hurt more than any answer could have. You said they died from an illness. They did. What illness? Silence. What illness, Aunt Elena? The old woman closed her eyes. For a moment she looked exhausted. Ancient. As though she had carried something heavy for far too long. Finally she spoke. The kind that took them from me. Alexis's anger softened immediately. She hated seeing Elena like this. The conversation ended there. Not because Alexis had answers. Because she saw pain. And sometimes love meant waiting. Even when every instinct demanded otherwise. 3 days later, she returned to work. The carpenter greeted her with a grunt. Apparently, that was his version of concern. Alexis accepted it. The morning passed quietly. Customers came and went. Wood shavings collected beneath work tables. Life resumed. Until the old carpenter suddenly dropped his tools. His face went pale. He looked toward the village square. Then toward the mountain. Then back toward the shop. Oh no. Alexis immediately looked up. What? The old man grabbed his coat. We're closed. What happened? We're closed. Helpful. He ignored her completely. Which was becoming a theme in this village. The sign was flipped. The door locked. And then the old man hurried down the road. Along with everyone else. Toward the great hall. Naturally, Alexis followed. Because curiosity was going to kill her someday. At least she would die consistent. She kept her cap low. Her head down. And slipped into the crowd gathering outside the hall. The building was packed. Villagers filled every bench. Every wall. Every corner. Fear hung in the air like smoke. Alexis managed to squeeze into a spot near the back. Just in time to hear the village elder speak. We need another offering. The room fell silent. Alexis felt her stomach drop. The elder looked exhausted. Desperate. The mountain grows worse every month. Nobody argued. Nobody protested. That frightened Alexis more than the words themselves. We have no eligible girls remaining. Murmurs spread through the room. Fear. Panic. Resignation. Alexis felt cold. Suddenly. Violently. The same freezing sensation from before returned. Her fingers trembled. The room seemed hotter. The air thicker. Harder to breathe. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Then the mountain roared. The entire hall shook. People screamed. Dust rained from the ceiling. Outside, a sound echoed across the village. Ancient. Terrible. Powerful. Every conversation died instantly. Every face turned toward the doors. And Alexis felt her blood turn to ice. The giant doors exploded inward. A wave of heat crashed through the hall. People stumbled backward. Children cried. Someone began praying. Then Alexis saw it. A massive golden eye. The size of a wagon. Watching. Waiting. Dragon. Real. Impossible. Dragon. The creature lowered its enormous head. Black scales reflected torchlight. Smoke curled from its nostrils. Its horns scraped the stone ceiling. Alexis couldn't breathe. Her vision blurred. The cold surged through her body. So intense it hurt. The dragon inhaled. Slowly. Deeply. Searching. Looking for something. Someone. Its golden eyes swept over the crowd. Past the elders. Past the guards. Past the villagers. Then stopped. Directly on Alexis. The world disappeared. For one impossible moment, she felt seen. Not looked at. Seen. The dragon froze. Its pupils narrowed. Its head tilted slightly. Confusion. Shock. Hope. Alexis didn't know how she knew. She just did. Then a hand grabbed her arm. Elena. Her great-aunt had somehow crossed the entire hall. Fear blazed across her face. Not fear of the dragon. Fear for Alexis. We need to leave. Aunt. Now. The dragon took another breath. The hall temperature climbed higher. Yet Alexis felt colder than ever. Frost crept across her fingertips. The dragon noticed. Its golden eyes widened. And for the first time in 300 years, Dragon Queen Nuri felt something impossible. Cold. Not outside. Inside. The curse recoiled. The endless fire faltered. For a single heartbeat. A single glorious heartbeat. The agony stopped. The dragon stared at the young woman hidden in the crowd. Dark hair. Blue eyes. Frozen fingers. And the impossible scent of winter. Hope struck harder than any blade. The curse screamed. The mountain shook. And Nuri knew. The girl must not leave. Elena was already dragging Alexis toward the rear exit when the dragon's roar shattered the sky. And somewhere deep beneath the mountain, for the first time in centuries, the Dragon Queen began to believe she might survive. Chapter 4. The Dragon's Prison. The world returned in fragments. Heat. Darkness. Pain. Then movement. A slow, steady sway. Alexis groaned. Her entire body felt bruised. Something hard pressed against her ribs. Something warm surrounded her. No, not warm. Hot. Dangerously hot. Her eyes flew open. For one terrifying second, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back. The hall. The dragon. The guards. The mountain. Being thrown into the hole. Alexis shot upright, immediately regretting it. The movement nearly sent her tumbling from wherever she was perched. A large hand caught her shoulder, steadying her. Not hurting, just stopping her from falling. Alexis froze. Slowly. Very slowly. She looked up and forgot every coherent thought she had ever possessed. The dragon was gone. In its place stood a woman. A very tall woman. A very muscular woman. A very beautiful woman. Long black hair spilled over broad shoulders. Golden eyes glowed softly in the darkness. Her face looked carved from marble and bad decisions. Strong jaw. High cheekbones. Full lips. The kind of face that should have come with a warning label. Alexis stared. The woman stared back. Neither spoke. Then Alexis found the only logical conclusion. You're the dragon. The woman blinked. You're observant. Her voice rolled through the cavern like warm honey poured over velvet. Alexis immediately disliked how much she noticed that. "You're also arrogant." One dark eyebrow rose. "You're remarkably rude for someone who just fell into my mountain." Correction. Alexis pointed a finger at her. "I was thrown into your mountain." The woman considered that. Fair. Alexis hated that answer because it sounded sincere. The cavern around them was enormous. Not the jagged volcanic pit she expected. Not bones and skeletons. Not piles of treasure. Instead, she found polished stone floors. Ancient pillars. Bookshelves. Actual bookshelves. Soft lantern light illuminated pathways leading deeper underground. There were even plants. Green plants. Growing beneath the mountain. What? Alexis slowly turned in a circle. "What is this place?" "My home." "This is your home?" "Yes." Alexis pointed toward a bookshelf. "You read?" The woman looked offended. "Of course I read. You are a dragon. I am also older than most kingdoms." That wasn't an answer. It was a better answer than the question deserved. Alexis frowned. The Dragon Queen smirked. The expression was devastating. Alexis decided immediately that she hated her. Probably. Maybe. The woman crossed her arms. The movement made every muscle in her shoulders shift beneath the fitted black tank top she wore. Alexis looked away. Immediately. With dignity. Mostly. "What's your name?" The dragon studied her for several moments. "Nuri." The name settled into the cavern. Ancient. Powerful. Beautiful. Like the woman herself. Alexis hated that thought too. "Nuri," she repeated. The Dragon Queen nodded. "And you are Alexis Damien." Alexis froze. "How do you know my name?" Nuri's expression changed. "Not much. Just enough. A flicker of something. Something careful. Something curious. I know many things." "That's suspicious." "I've been alive for 300 years. "That's still suspicious." The corner of Nuri's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Silence settled between them. Alexis became aware of something strange. The cold. It was gone. Not completely. But softer. Distant. As if the freezing ache she'd carried her entire life had stepped back. Nuri noticed her expression. "What?" Alexis hesitated. Then shook her head. "Nothing." The Dragon Queen didn't believe her. Alexis didn't care. Instead, she looked around again. Something wasn't adding up. "You don't have cages." "No." "Chains." "No." "Torture room." Nuri stared. "A torture room? You are a dragon." I failed to see the connection. Alexis threw her hands into the air. "Everyone says you're kidnapping women." Nuri's jaw tightened. Immediately. The shift was subtle. But Alexis saw it. Pain. Real pain. The Dragon Queen looked away. "I never kidnapped anyone." Alexis blinked. "What?" "I never kidnapped anyone." The words came quietly. Too quietly. "I took them from the village." "That sounds exactly like kidnapping." Nuri sighed. A long-suffering sigh. "I brought them here." "Still kidnapping." "I protected them." Alexis stopped. The certainty in Nuri's voice caught her off guard. They were fed. Silence. They were safe. More silence. They left whenever they wished. Alexis stared. The image she'd built her entire life began cracking. Just slightly. Just enough. Nuri turned away, walking toward a stone table. For a moment she looked tired. Not physically. Something deeper. Lonelier. "I never wanted sacrifices." Alexis felt something twist inside her chest. The words sounded old. Heavy. Repeated countless times to people who never listened. Then why does the village keep sending them? Nuri's shoulders became rigid. The answer took several seconds. Because fear is easier than truth. A low rumble echoed through the mountain. Nuri stiffened instantly. The lanterns flickered. Heat rolled through the cavern. Alexis sucked in a sharp breath. Pain exploded behind her ribs. The freezing sensation returned. Stronger. Sharper. Nuri doubled over. A strangled sound escaped her. Not a roar. Not anger. Pain. Pure pain. Alexis stared. Nuri? The Dragon Queen dropped to one knee. Golden light began bleeding beneath her skin. Smoke curled from her fingertips. The air temperature surged. Stone cracked beneath her boots. Alexis acted without thinking. She rushed forward and grabbed Nuri's arm. The effect was immediate. Frost exploded across Nuri's skin. Not harmful. Beautiful. Delicate patterns of ice spreading over golden light. The cavern fell silent. The heat vanished. The pain vanished. Nuri froze. Alexis froze. Neither moved. Neither breathed. The Dragon Queen slowly lifted her head. Gold eyes locked onto blue ones. Shock. Disbelief. Hope. Raw and terrifying. The frost continued spreading where Alexis touched her. And for the first time in centuries, the curse was silent. Completely silent. Nuri, Alexis whispered. The Dragon Queen looked at their joined hands, then back at Alexis. Her voice barely emerged. Almost reverent. Almost afraid. What are you? The question hung between them. Neither woman realizing they had just changed each other's lives forever. And somewhere above them, the mountain stopped shaking, as if it, too, had felt the touch. Chapter 5. Fire and Frost. Neither of them moved. Alexis still knelt beside Nuri. Nuri still stared at their joined hands. The frost remained. Delicate white patterns traced across the Dragon Queen's skin like winter vines. Beautiful. Impossible. The silence stretched. Long enough to become uncomfortable. Long enough for Alexis to recover first. She immediately snatched her hand back. The frost vanished. The heat returned. Not as violently as before, but enough. Nuri inhaled sharply. The loss was instant. Visible. And for a moment Alexis saw something that made her chest tighten. Disappointment. Raw. Unhidden. Like someone waking from a beautiful dream. What was that? Alexis asked. Nuri looked at her. What was what? The part where you nearly exploded. I did not explode. You looked pretty close. I wasn't. You were glowing. The Dragon Queen sighed. You make conversation exhausting. Alexis crossed her arms. And you avoid answering questions. Because you ask too many. Because nobody else answers them. That actually made Nuri pause. Alexis considered that a victory. A small one. But still a victory. Nuri slowly stood. The movement was graceful despite her size. Power rolled beneath every step. Not threatening. Controlled. The kind of strength that didn't need to prove itself. Alexis hated noticing that. Almost as much as she hated noticing the way the fitted tank top stretched across broad shoulders. She immediately looked somewhere else. Like a mature adult. Nuri's mouth twitched. See something interesting? No. Liar. Alexis pointed at a nearby bookshelf. Books. Books. Very interesting books. You were staring at me. I was not. You were. I was evaluating the threat. Nuri actually laughed. A low sound. Warm. Rich. The kind that settled into your bones. Alexis hated that too. Hated that she wanted to hear it again and again. The Dragon Queen moved toward a long wooden table. A meal already waited there. Bread. Fruit. Cheese. Fresh water. Alexis stopped. Suspicious. Immediately suspicious. You prepared food. Yes. Why? Nuri stared at her. Because humans require food. That's exactly what someone poisoning me would say. Nuri blinked. Then blinked again. Finally, she looked genuinely offended. I am a dragon. Correct. If I wanted you dead, Alexis Damien, there are considerably faster methods. Alexis considered that. Fair. Thank you. Still suspicious. Nuri groaned. Despite her caution, Alexis sat. Her stomach betrayed her immediately. Growling loud enough to echo. Nuri raised an eyebrow. Alexis pointed a warning finger. Not one word. The Dragon Queen looked entirely too pleased with herself. Of course. You're thinking words. I absolutely am. Alexis narrowed her eyes. Nuri smirked. The battle ended there. Mostly because Alexis discovered the bread was incredible. For several minutes they ate in silence. The kind of silence that wasn't awkward. Just uncertain. Both trying to understand the other. Finally, Alexis spoke. You really didn't hurt them? Nuri's chewing slowed. The women. Alexis nodded. The Dragon Queen set her cup down. No. The answer came immediately. Without hesitation. Without defense. Just truth. Alexis studied her. Looking for cracks. Looking for lies. Finding none. What happened to them? Nuri leaned back slightly. A shadow passed through her expression. I cared for them. The answer sounded simple. Too simple. There were dozens. There were. And? Nuri looked away. Toward the distant darkness of the cavern. They stayed a while. Something heavy settled into her voice. Then they left. Alexis frowned. All of them. Yes. Why? The answer took a while. Long enough for Alexis to wonder if she'd pushed too far. Then Nuri spoke quietly. Because I could never touch them. Alexis blinked. What? The Dragon Queen laughed once. Not humor. Bitterness. When the curse worsened, physical contact became dangerous. The words felt practiced. Old. Worn smooth by centuries. If I brushed against someone. She looked down at her hands. They burned. Silence followed. Deep and uncomfortable. Alexis stared. Nuri continued. I frightened them. Her voice remained calm. Too calm. They came here believing I was a monster. A small smile appeared. Sad. Lonely. Unfortunately, the curse often agreed. Something inside Alexis shifted. Just slightly. The image of the terrible dragon grew less sharp. Less certain. More complicated. The mountain rumbled. Softly this time. Almost like distant thunder. Nuri immediately stiffened. Alexis noticed. You felt that. I always feel it. The Dragon Queen's gaze drifted upward. Toward stone and darkness. Toward the mountain above them. It is connected to me. What is? The mountain. Alexis froze. What? Nuri sighed. As the curse worsens. Another rumble. Stronger. So does the mountain. Alexis suddenly understood why the valley was dying. Why the rivers were poisoned. Why crops failed. Why the air felt wrong. The curse wasn't contained. It was spreading. Like a sickness. Like rot. Like fire. A cold not formed in her stomach. My aunt is up there. Nuri looked at her immediately. Elena. The woman who had tried desperately to get Alexis away. The woman who clearly knew more than she admitted. She is safe. You don't know that. I do. Alexis frowned. How? The Dragon Queen hesitated. Just briefly. Then. I have protected this mountain for centuries. Alexis stared. You can barely protect yourself. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Silence. Complete silence. Nuri blinked. Slowly. Alexis immediately regretted nothing. The Dragon Queen folded her arms. You're astonishingly rude. You keep saying that. Because you keep proving it. Then stop giving me opportunities. To Alexis's surprise, Nuri laughed again. The sound echoed through the cavern. For the first time, it sounded genuine. Not ancient. Not burdened. Just amused. Later, as lanterns illuminated the cavern, Neri showed her the rest of the underground halls. Alexis expected prisons. Instead, she found wonders. Ancient murals, libraries, gardens fed by underground springs, rooms carved directly into volcanic stone, evidence of centuries of life, centuries of loneliness. The realization settled heavily. Nuri had lived here alone for hundreds of years. Alexis wasn't sure whether that was tragic or horrifying. Possibly both. They eventually stopped before a balcony carved into the mountainside. Far below, rivers of lava glowed like molten gold. The sight stole Alexis's breath. Beautiful. Terrible. Alive. Beside her, Nuri stood quietly, golden eyes reflecting the fire below. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Alexis felt it. The cold. A small pulse beneath her skin. Not painful. Aware. Responding. Nuri felt it too. She turned toward Alexis. Alexis turned toward her. The space between them suddenly felt very small. Very noticeable. Neither woman moved. Yet something invisible seemed to stretch between them. A thread. A connection. A question neither understood. The air became strangely still. Then Nuri took a careful step backward. Almost as if she was afraid. Not of Alexis. Of hope. And somehow that hurt more. That night, long after Alexis had been shown to her room, Nuri stood alone on the balcony overlooking the lava rivers. The curse twisted beneath her skin. Restless. Angry. But weaker. Much weaker. She closed her eyes. Remembering frost. Remembering silence. Remembering relief. Then she remembered the stubborn young woman who argued with everything she said. A small smile appeared. The first real smile in decades. Alexis Damien, she murmured. Far above, the mountain gave a contented rumble. And for the first time in centuries, Dragon Queen Nuri looked toward tomorrow instead of merely surviving today. Chapter 6. The quiet between heat and ice. Sleep did not come easily in the mountain. Alexis lay on the bed Nuri had given her and stared at the ceiling carved from ancient stone. No creaks. No wind. No distant village sounds. Only the deep, steady pulse of something alive beneath the mountain. Like a heartbeat too large for any one body. She turned onto her side. Then the other side. Then sighed loudly into the silence. Nothing. No Elena checking on her. No village noise. No world she understood. Just Nuri's mountain. And Nuri herself, somewhere below or above or everywhere at once. Alexis didn't know which was more unsettling. The dragon. Or the fact she wasn't dead. A soft knock came at the door. Alexis sat up immediately. Too fast. The room spun slightly. Yeah. The door opened just enough for golden light to slip through the crack. Nuri stood there. No dragon form. No roaring presence. Just the woman. Tall. Composed. Barefoot. Hair loose like ink spilled over moonlight. Alexis blinked. You don't sleep. I do. That was a lie. Nuri's eyes narrowed slightly. I was resting. Also a lie. A pause. Then Nuri stepped inside anyway. Uninvited. Alexis watched her carefully. Is there a reason you're standing in my room at whatever time it is underground? It is not time. That's not helpful. Nuri looked around the room as if assessing it. Then her gaze returned to Alexis. You are cold again. Alexis frowned. I'm fine. You are not. I'm literally under a blanket. That does not change your temperature. Alexis hesitated. Then muttered. Rude. Nuri tilted her head. I was not aware honesty was rude. It depends how you deliver it. I will note that. You won't. I will try. That alone made Alexis pause. A dragon queen trying. That was new. Dangerous, even. Nuri moved closer. Not quickly. Not aggressively. Carefully. like someone approaching a skittish animal that might bite or run. Alexis noticed that too, which made her even more suspicious. What are you doing? I want to understand something. That sounds like the start of a problem. Nuri stopped beside the bed. Earlier, when you touched me. Alexis went still. The memory hit instantly. Frost. Silence. Pain disappearing. Something inside Nuri going quiet for the first time in centuries. Alexis swallowed. Yeah, it did not hurt. The words were simple, but they carried weight. A lot of it. Alexis sat up straighter. Is that unusual? Nuri's gaze flickered. Yes. A beat. Everything hurts. Silence fell. Even the mountain outside seemed quieter. Alexis didn't know what to say to that. So, she went with honesty. I didn't feel normal either. Nuri's attention sharpened instantly. How? Alexis hesitated, then frowned. I felt warmer. A pause. That's not right, she added. Nuri stepped closer again. Now there was barely space between them and the edge of the bed. The air shifted. Subtle. Charged. Alexis became aware of it immediately. Her skin tingled. Cold gathered beneath her ribs. Responding. Like something recognizing something else. Nuri noticed the same thing. Her gaze dropped briefly to Alexis's hands, then returned to her eyes. You affect the curse. Alexis blinked. I what? You weaken it. That sounds like something you should have led with earlier. I was uncertain. That's worse. Nuri ignored that, which honestly was becoming a habit. The silence stretched again. This time it wasn't comfortable. It was loaded, like a storm waiting for permission. Alexis shifted slightly under the blanket. Nuri noticed everything. Every movement. Every breath. Every flicker of tension. You are still afraid of me, Nuri said quietly. Alexis scoffed immediately. No, I'm not. Nuri raised an eyebrow. You were thrown into my mountain. Technically, I was assisted into it. That is not better. It feels better. A pause. Nuri studied her. You lie poorly. I don't lie. You avoid. That's different. It is. Another silence. This one softer. Less sharp. Nuri exhaled slowly. I do not wish to harm you. Alexis looked up at her. That landed differently. Because it didn't sound like reassurance. It sounded like truth Nuri had rehearsed for a very long time. I believe you, Alexis said quietly. Nuri seemed surprised by that. Just slightly. Somewhere deep in the mountain, something shifted. A low tremor rolled through the stone. Nuri tensed instantly. Her expression changed. Not calm anymore. Controlled urgency. It is reacting again. Alexis sat up fully now. To what? Nuri's gaze locked onto her. To you. The words hung there. Heavy. Unavoidable. Before Alexis could respond, the temperature in the room dropped sharply. Not from the environment. From her. Frost spread across the edge of the blanket. Across her fingertips. Across the floor. Nuri stepped back instinctively. Then stopped. Fascinated. Not afraid. Watching. Alexis looked down at her own hand. Ice forming again. What is happening to me? Nuri didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was quieter than before. I think. A pause. Careful. Almost reverent. You are the only thing that has ever answered the curse. Alexis frowned. That doesn't make sense. It does to me. The room hummed faintly. The mountain listening. Waiting. Nuri took one more step back. Not because she wanted distance. Because she was afraid of what she might do if she stayed too close. I should leave, she said. Alexis blinked. Why? Nuri's jaw tightened slightly. Because you make the curse quiet. That sounded like a confession more than a statement. Alexis didn't know why it made her chest feel tight. So? Nuri looked at her then. Really looked. And for a moment the ancient queen beneath the mountain looked younger than her centuries. I have not known quiet in a very long time. The words landed softly, like something fragile being placed between them. Alexis's voice dropped. Maybe that's not something you should run from. Nuri hesitated. Just a fraction. Then turned away. But she didn't leave immediately. Instead, she paused at the door. Half in shadow, half in gold light. You should sleep, she said. I was trying. A faint pause. Then, almost reluctantly, I will remain nearby. Alexis blinked. You will what? Nuri didn't look back. I will remain nearby. As in, yes. A beat. Outside your room. Alexis stared at her. That is still weird. Nuri finally glanced over her shoulder. A faint hint of something dangerous in her eyes. Sleep, Alexis Damien. A pause. Then softer. Please. And then she was gone. Alexis sat in the silence that followed. The frost on her fingertips slowly fading. The warmth returning. Strange. Unsteady. Real. Outside her door, she could sense it. Not footsteps. Not presence. Something more constant. Nuri staying. Not guarding. Not watching. Just there. And for the first time since arriving in the mountain, Alexis did not feel like she was inside a prison. She felt like she was inside something waking up. Chapter 7. The Thing the Mountain Remembers. Morning did not arrive in the mountain like it did in the valley. It seeped in. Slow. Golden. Uncertain. Alexis woke to the absence of silence. Not noise. Not voices. Just presence. Like the mountain itself was aware she existed now. She sat up carefully. Blanket half tangled around her waist. The frost from last night was gone. But her skin still felt different. More awake. More sensitive. As if something inside her had shifted and forgotten to shift back. Outside her door, something moved. Alexis froze. Then exhaled slowly. Are you seriously still there? A pause. Then, yes. Nuri's voice. Calm. Completely unbothered. Alexis rubbed her face. That is not normal behavior. I am aware. Are you standing? Yes. For how long? A beat. Since night. Alexis blinked. That's insane. I do not sleep often. That's not reassuring. Nuri did not respond. Which, annoyingly, felt like agreement. Alexis opened the door. Slowly. Like she expected a trap. Nuri stood exactly where she had promised. Barefoot again. Arms folded loosely. Hair slightly disheveled in a way that suggested she had, in fact, been standing there the entire night. Which was absurd. And somehow worse because it looked effortless. You look tired, Alexis said immediately. Nuri blinked. I do not get tired. That is also a lie. It is not. You have dark circles. Nuri paused. Then looked away slightly. That is irrelevant. Alexis smirked. So, you do get tired. I experience reduced clarity. That is tired. It is not the same. It absolutely is. Nuri sighed. A long-suffering sound. Humans are very committed to categorizing suffering. Alexis grinned. That's because we experience it in multiple ways. Nuri gave her a flat look. Reassuring. The mountain rumbled softly. Not violent. Not angry. More like something shifting in its sleep. Alexis noticed immediately. So, it's always like that? Yes. Does it ever stop? No. That feels important. It is. Nuri turned slightly toward the corridor leading deeper into the mountain. You should eat. I should ask questions. You can do both. Multitasking queen. Nuri glanced at her. Do not call me that. Why not? It sounds incorrect. Alexis snorted. Everything about you sounds incorrect. That earned her a look. A long one. Alexis, for the first time, didn't look away immediately. That was new. For both of them. They walked through the carved corridors together. Side by side. Not touching. But close enough that Alexis could feel it. That strange temperature shift around Nuri. Heat that didn't burn anymore. Cold that didn't hurt anymore. Like two extremes negotiating peace in real time. Alexis broke the silence first. So, what do you do all day down here? Nuri considered. I maintain the mountain. That sounds dramatic. It is. Do you have hobbies? Nuri stopped walking. Alexis almost walked into her. Almost. What is a hobby? Alexis stared. You're joking. I am not. You're centuries old and don't know what hobbies are? I have duties. That is depressing. Nuri frowned slightly. I am not depressed. That's exactly what a depressed person would say. I do not experience emotional instability. Alexis squinted. That sounded like emotional instability. Nuri ignored her. Again. But there was the faintest tension in her jaw now, which Alexis absolutely noticed, and absolutely chose not to comment on. For now, they entered a larger chamber. A library. Massive. Ancient. Walls lined with books that looked like they had survived the rise and fall of civilizations. Alexis stopped walking entirely. Oh my God. Nuri watched her reaction carefully. You like it? This is not liking. This is spiritual collapse. Nuri tilted her head. Spiritual collapse? Yes. This is illegal levels of books. They are permitted. By who? I am the authority here. Alexis turned slowly. Right. Forgot I'm talking to the Mountain Queen. Nuri corrected immediately. I am not a queen anymore. Alexis blinked. What are you then? A pause. Nuri looked around the library. At the endless shelves. At the weight of centuries. At present, she said quietly, I am what remains. That hit differently. Even Alexis felt it. The banter softened without either of them meaning it to. Alexis walked between shelves, running her fingers lightly along spines. Some were cracked. Some were glowing faintly with old enchantments. Some looked untouched for centuries. You read all of these? Yes. Alone. Nuri hesitated. Yes. The single word carried too much history inside it. Alexis turned back toward her. And no one ever stayed? Nuri's expression tightened slightly. They tried. Why didn't they? A pause. Then quietly. Because I am not safe for them. Alexis stopped. That's not true anymore. Nuri looked at her. Long. Careful. What makes you say that? Alexis lifted her hand slightly. Frost flickered across her fingertips. Then faded. I think I'm the exception. Silence. Not heavy this time. Just real. The mountain rumbled again. Stronger. Both of them felt it this time. Nuri's entire posture changed instantly. Alert. Focused. Something old and instinctive awakening. What is it? Alexis asked. Nuri didn't answer immediately. Instead, she moved toward a wall carved with ancient symbols. Her hand hovered near them. The markings pulsed faintly. I did not expect this so soon. Expected what? Nuri's voice dropped. The curse is reacting to you more quickly than I predicted. Alexis frowned. That's not comforting. It is not meant to be. Another rumble. Closer. Louder. The library lights flickered. Dust shook loose from the ceiling. Alexis stepped closer without thinking. What happens when it reacts? Nuri looked at her. And for the first time, there was something sharp in her expression. Concern. Not for herself. For Alexis. It tries to correct the imbalance. Which is, you. The word landed like a stone dropped into deep water. Alexis stared. That sounds bad. It is. The mountain shook harder. Books trembled on shelves. Some fell. Nuri moved instantly. Between Alexis and the shaking walls. Protective. Instinctive. Not even thinking. Alexis noticed that too, and something in her chest tightened. You don't have to do that, she said. Nuri didn't look back. I do. Why? A pause. Then softly. Because you are the first quiet I have ever known. The room went still. Even the mountains seemed to pause for half a breath. Alexis didn't know what to say to that. So, she said the only thing she could. That's a really bad reason to risk your life. Nuri almost smiled. Almost. Then the ground beneath them cracked. And the mountain began to wake fully. Chapter 8. When the mountain opens its eyes. The crack came like a whisper. Then it became a groan. Then the groan became something alive. The library floor split beneath them with a slow, deliberate violence. Stone shifted. Ancient dust erupted into the air. Books slid from shelves in silent, tragic surrender. Alexis stumbled back. Okay, nope, this is officially bad. Nuri moved faster than sight should allow. One arm around Alexis's waist, pulling her clear of the collapsing section. No hesitation. No calculation. Pure instinct. Alexis froze for half a second in that grip. Warm. Steady. Unburning. Then reality snapped back in. I can walk, she said immediately. Nuri released her. Immediately. Too immediately. As if letting go cost something. Noted, Nuri said. Not necessary, Alexis muttered. It was. They both ignored the fact that neither of them sounded convinced. The rumbling intensified. Not random now. Directional. Intentional. Like something massive turning in its sleep and finally remembering it was awake. Nuri's expression changed. That shift again. Queenless. Sharper. Ancient. The curse is escalating. That's your calm version of "we're about to die"? It is accurate. Great. Love that for us. Nuri glanced at her. Your humor is inappropriate. My survival mechanism is personality. That is concerning. It's holding me together, so don't criticize it. A beat. Nuri didn't argue. That alone felt significant. They moved quickly through the corridor network. The mountain shook harder with every step. Cracks spread across carved stone like veins of light. Alexis felt it in her bones now. The cold. But different. Not random anymore. Responsive. Like something inside her was answering something inside the mountain. What is it reacting to? She asked. Nuri didn't slow. You. I'm noticing a pattern here where everything is apparently my fault. That is not what I said. It is heavily implied. Nuri exhaled sharply. The curse does not recognize neutrality. That sounds like politics. It is older than politics. Even worse. Nuri almost smiled again. Almost. They reached a wide stone bridge suspended over a glowing chasm. Below them, lava pulsed like a sleeping heart. Except it wasn't sleeping anymore. It was rising. Slowly. The glow intensified. The air thickened. Alexis stopped. That's new. Nuri stepped beside her. It is not supposed to rise this quickly. That sounds like a problem. It is a correction. Alexis looked at her sharply. A correction to what? Nuri hesitated. Just long enough to matter. To you. Alexis went still. I'm starting to take this personally. Nuri finally looked at her. It is not personal. That is not comforting. It is factual. Facts can be comforting. Nuri paused. I will note that disagreement. A deep tremor shook the bridge. Stone cracked beneath Alexis's feet. She stumbled. Nuri caught her again. Faster this time. Less controlled. More urgent. The contact sparked instantly. Frost erupted between them. Brief. Bright. Both of them reacted. Nuri inhaled sharply. Alexis jerked back slightly. Neither let go immediately. Not because they held on. Because something held on through them. Nuri's voice dropped. It is stronger. Alexis swallowed. I didn't do anything. That is the problem. A beat. The mountain groaned louder. Closer now. something massive moving beneath them. Alexis looked down into the chasm. What is under us? Neri's jaw tightened. Core passages. That sounds like the heart of something. It is. And we are standing above it. Yes. Alexis turned slowly toward her. Are we the worst hikers in history? Neri didn't answer immediately. Then, possibly. That earned a laugh from Alexis. It slipped out before she could stop it. Even she looked surprised. Neri noticed. And something in her expression softened. Just slightly. The bridge began to fracture. One end collapsing into the lava below. Heat surged upward. Alexis felt it immediately. Then the cold responded. Too fast. Too strong. Her breath hitched. Frost spread across her arms. Her fingertips. Nuri watched closely. Too closely. Alexis. I didn't do it on purpose. I know. The certainty in that answer made Alexis pause. Another crack split the bridge. They were running out of time. Nuri grabbed her hand. Not cautiously this time. Deliberately. Instant reaction. The moment skin touched skin, everything stopped. The lava below stilled. The tremor softened. The collapsing stone froze mid-break. Not physically. Energetically. Like reality itself hesitated. Frost exploded outward from Alexis's hand. Golden heat surged from Nuri's arm. Neither destructive. Both stabilizing. The bridge held. Barely. The mountain held its breath. Alexis stared at their joined hands. Okay. Nuri stared too. This is new. That's your entire contribution? I am processing. I'd appreciate faster processing. Nuri almost smiled again. But her focus sharpened quickly. This is not just reaction. Alexis swallowed. What is it then? Nuri's voice dropped. Balance. The word hung there. Heavy. Perfectly placed. The mountain trembled again. But differently now. Less chaotic. More aware. Like something had opened its eyes fully for the first time. And seen them. Far above them, somewhere beyond stone and flame and history. The curse shifted. Not breaking. Not yet. But recognizing. Responding. And deciding. Nuri tightened her grip slightly. Not enough to hurt. Enough to anchor. We need to move. Alexis nodded. Agreed. A pause. Then, because she couldn't help herself. If we survive this, I'm requesting compensation. Nuri glanced at her. What kind? Alexis grinned despite everything. Less collapsing mountains. More explanations. Nuri exhaled something that might have been a laugh. I will consider it. That's not reassuring. It is honest. That's worse. And yet they ran together anyway. Deeper into the mountain that was no longer asleep, but waking. And remembering them both. Chapter 9. The woman the mountain remembers. The deeper they went, the quieter the mountain became. Not peaceful. Not calm. Listening. That was what unsettled Alexis most. Every step felt noticed. Every breath felt counted. Even the air seemed to pause before moving around them. Nuri walked slightly ahead now. Still close enough that Alexis could feel her presence like heat behind glass. But focused. Alert in a way that made the entire cavern system feel smaller. You said this happens sometimes, Alexis said, breaking the tension. Nuri didn't look back. Not like this. That's not comforting. I did not intend comfort. Still noted. A faint pause. Then, almost reluctantly. You're shaking. Alexis looked down. Her hands were steady. Her body wasn't. I'm fine. That is not an answer. It's my favorite lie. Nuri stopped walking. Alexis nearly bumped into her again. This time she caught herself. Barely. Nuri turned fully. Golden eyes locked onto her. The glow was softer here. Less beast. More woman trying very hard not to become something else. You are not built for this depth of resonance, Nuri said. That sounds insulting. It is descriptive. Still insulting. Nuri ignored her. Again. But her gaze lingered longer than necessary on Alexis's face. Then lower. Then back up. As if verifying something only she could sense. The mountain groaned. A deep, resonant sound that came from everywhere at once. The ground beneath them shifted. Stone reorganizing itself. Alive. Alexis steadied herself against the wall. Okay. I'm officially uncomfortable now. Nuri's voice tightened. It is responding to your presence. That's becoming a theme I dislike. You're stabilizing it. That sounds like a job I did not apply for. You were not meant to be here at all. Yeah, well, I got thrown into the position. A beat. Nuri's jaw tightened slightly. Unfortunate phrasing. Alexis smirked despite herself. Glad you noticed. They entered a wide chamber carved in circular symmetry. The walls were covered in markings. Not decorations. Not language. Something older. Something that pulsed faintly with heat and frost in alternating waves. Alexis stopped immediately. Okay, that's creepy. Nuri stepped inside carefully. It is memory. Memory of what? Nuri didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked toward the center, where a raised stone platform sat untouched by dust. Like nothing had dared land there for centuries. This is where it began, Nuri said quietly. Alexis frowned. What began? Nuri hesitated. Just long enough for hesitation to feel like truth. The binding. Silence. Even the mountains seemed to hold still. Alexis crossed her arms. All right. Start from the part where I stopped being confused. Nuri exhaled slowly. Then spoke. Long ago. I was not like this. Alexis raised an eyebrow. More dragon. Nuri ignored the interruption. I was the queen of this mountain. That landed differently. Alexis stilled. You were actually a queen? Nuri glanced at her. I told you I was not lying. You also told me you weren't tired. That was also true at the time. Alexis narrowed her eyes. You are suspiciously precise. I am ancient. Not an excuse. Nuri almost smiled. Almost. Then continued. The mountain was alive then as well. But not corrupted. It was a bond between my people and the land. She looked around the chamber. Something softer entered her voice. It obeyed balance. Alexis listened more carefully now. Less sarcasm. More attention. Then Nuri's voice darkened slightly. Until someone came who did not understand balance. The air tightened. Alexis felt it. What did they do? Nuri's hand curled slightly at her side. They tried to take the mountain's power. A pause. And failed. Silence again. Badly, Alexis guessed. Nuri's eyes flickered. Catastrophically. That sounds on brand for humanity. Nuri didn't argue. That alone felt ominous. The chamber suddenly pulsed. A wave of heat surged through the walls. Alexis staggered. Cold flared instantly beneath her skin in response. Not pain. Reaction. Like something answering a call. Nuri turned sharply. Do not resist it. I'm not doing anything. That is the problem. Can we stop blaming me for physics? Nuri stepped closer. Too close. The air between them tightened. Alexis felt it immediately. The shift. That pull. The strange balancing point where fire and frost stopped fighting and started listening. Nuri spoke quietly. It is not physics. Alexis swallowed. Then what is it? Nuri hesitated. Then, carefully. Recognition. The word hung there. Heavy. Strange. Alive. The chamber responded. The markings along the walls lit up. Slowly. One by one. Heat and frost interwoven. As if reacting to both of them. Alexis stepped back instinctively. Nuri reached out without thinking. Caught her wrist. The contact sparked instantly. Not violent. Not painful. Powerful. Frost and flame collided and held. The chamber went silent. Then, stabilized. The walls stopped pulsing. The tremors softened. Even the distant groaning of the mountain eased. Both of them froze. Nuri stared at her hand on Alexis's wrist. Alexis stared at the contact. Neither moved. Nuri whispered, "It remembers." Alexis frowned. "What does that mean?" Nuri looked up slowly. And for the first time since Alexis had met her, Nuri looked uncertain. "It remembers the bond." Silence. Then Alexis said carefully, "I don't remember any bond." Nuri's grip tightened slightly. Not possessive. Anchoring. "Neither do I." A pause. "But it does." The chamber shifted again. Not violently. Deliberately. The stone beneath them warmed. Then cooled. Then settled. As if deciding something. Then the markings aligned. Heat and frost forming a single symbol at the center of the room. Nuri released Alexis immediately. As if the moment had burned in a different way. She stepped back. Something unreadable flickering across her face. "This is not possible." Alexis rubbed her wrist lightly. "Yeah, I've been saying that a lot since I got here." Nuri didn't respond. Her attention was fixed on the symbol. Like it was watching them back. A deep voice echoed through the chamber. Not spoken. Not heard. Remembered. Balance was broken. The words vibrated through stone. Alexis stiffened. Nuri closed her eyes briefly. Balance seeks correction. The symbol flared brighter. Frost and fire intertwined. Alexis whispered, "What is this?" Nuri opened her eyes. Slowly. Carefully. Like accepting something she didn't want to name. The mountain's judgment. Silence. Then Alexis. "I hate judgment." Nuri almost smiled. Agreed. The symbol pulsed one last time. Then dimmed. But it did not disappear. It stayed. Waiting. Like a question that refused to be ignored. Nuri turned away first. A rare sign. "Come." Alexis followed. Because staying felt worse. As they left the chamber, the mountain's voice faded. But its awareness did not. It had seen them now. Recognized them. And decided they were part of its story. Not visitors. Not intruders. Something else entirely. And neither Alexis nor Nuri was ready for what that meant. Not yet. Chapter 10. The first touch that should not have worked. The world changed on contact. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly, like a locked door deciding, after centuries, that it remembers how to open. Nuri hadn't meant to touch her. That was the truth neither of them spoke out loud. Alexis had stumbled, still half dazed from the mountain, still burning with that strange cold that didn't belong in a human body, and Nuri had reached out without thinking. A reflex. A correction. A mistake. Her fingers brushed Alexis's wrist. And the mountain paused. Nuri felt it first. That familiar pressure inside her blood. The old burn. The curse answering like a reflex to presence, ready to rise. Then nothing. It didn't rise. It stopped. Like something had pressed a hand over a flame and decided it didn't want it to spread anymore. Nuri froze. Alexis froze harder. Because whatever had just happened didn't feel like healing. It felt like recognition. "Did you feel that?" Alexis whispered. Nuri didn't answer immediately. Her hand was still there. Still touching. Still safe. That alone made her throat tighten. "I felt it," Nuri said finally. Alexis swallowed. "That didn't hurt." "No." A beat. Then quieter, almost unwilling. "It should have." Nuri pulled her hand back slowly, like she was afraid movement would undo something fragile. The air between them felt different now. Not lighter. Not heavier. Changed. Alexis flexed her fingers, as if checking she was still herself. "What does that mean?" she asked. Nuri looked at her properly now. And something in her expression shifted. Not power. Not authority. Something far more dangerous. Attention. I don't know, Nuri admitted. Alexis blinked. That, apparently, was the second impossible event of the day. The valley wind moved through the broken path behind them. The mountain loomed silent. No roar. No heat surge. Just watching. Like it had learned something it didn't understand yet. Nuri took a step closer again, slower this time. Alexis didn't move away. That was new too. You're not burning me, Alexis said quietly. Nuri exhaled. I should be. Alexis gave a half laugh, soft and unsure. Well, you're not. That silence between them tightened. Not uncomfortable. Charged. Nuri lifted her hand again, but stopped just before contact. This time she asked without words. Alexis noticed. And nodded. A choice, not accident. Nuri touched her again. And the curse flinched. Not Nuri. Not Alexis. The curse. Like it didn't know what to do with something that didn't break when it was meant to. Alexis's breath caught slightly. Nuri watched her closely. It's weaker, Nuri said. Alexis frowned. Or I'm stronger. Nuri shook her head once. No. A pause. Then softer. You are incompatible with it. That word should have sounded clinical. It didn't. It sounded like discovery. Like something sacred and terrifying had just been named. Alexis stepped back slightly, breaking contact. Immediately, the pressure returned. Not pain, but memory of pressure. Nuri noticed instantly. So, it's you, Nuri said quietly. Alexis frowned. That's not a comforting sentence. It is not meant to comfort. Alexis huffed. Yeah, I noticed. Nuri's gaze stayed on her. Unmoving. Focused. Not queen now. Not myth. Something worse. Someone trying to understand. A long silence settled between them. Then Alexis spoke, quieter. What does it do to the others? Nuri didn't need to ask what it meant. The others, burn, she said. Alexis went still. And me? Nuri hesitated. Then, you quiet it. That landed differently. Not like power. Like implication. Like destiny trying very hard not to say its own name too loudly. Alexis looked down at her hands. Then back at Nuri. So, I'm the exception. Nuri stepped slightly closer again. No. Alexis frowned. Nuri's voice lowered. You are the answer it did not expect. That silence between them deepened. Not fear. Not understanding. Something leaning toward both. And for the first time, Nuri didn't step back. Chapter 11. The night she tried to leave. Alexis tried to leave before sunrise. Not in a dramatic way. Not with ceremony or tears or speeches about fate. Just quietly. Bare feet on cold wood. Bag already packed. Door already half open. Because whatever had happened between her and Nuri yesterday, whatever that touch had been, it was not something she wanted to build a life around. She didn't belong here. That was the only thing that still felt certain. Behind her, the room shifted. Not sound. Presence. Nuri was awake. Of course she was. Alexis didn't turn around immediately. I'm leaving, she said simply. A pause. Then Nuri's voice, low from the other side of the room. No. Not harsh. Not angry. Just immediate. Alexis finally turned. Nuri stood near the shadowed wall, half human, half something older even in stillness. Her presence filled the space differently now. Less monster. More awareness. Too focused. That's not your decision, Alexis said. Nuri stepped forward once. I am not making a decision, she said quietly. I am stating consequence. Alexis let out a short breath. Same thing, just dressed nicer. That earned the smallest flicker of something on Nuri's face. Not quite amusement. Recognition of tone. She was learning Alexis. That was part of the problem. I don't belong in your mountain, Alexis said. Nuri shook her head slightly. You do not belong to it. That's not what I said. It is what you meant. Alexis tightened her grip on her bag. I didn't choose any of this. That landed differently. Nuri didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice softened. I know. A pause. Then, quieter. That is why it works. Alexis frowned. That is not comforting. It is not meant to be comfort. Nuri stepped closer now. Careful. Not cornering her, but refusing distance. When she spoke again, it was lower. You are the only thing that quiets what I am becoming. Alexis blinked. That sounds like a you problem. It is, Nuri said immediately. And it is also a truth. A pause. Then softer. When you are near me, I am not only hunger, not only memory, not only what they made me. Alexis looked at her for a long moment, then shook her head. That is still not my responsibility. Nuri didn't argue. That was new. Instead, I am not asking you to be responsible. A beat. I am asking you not to disappear. That landed too close to something real. Alexis looked away first. I need to see my aunt, she said abruptly. Nuri stilled. Your guardian. Yes. Why? Alexis looked back at her. Because she is the only reason I survived long enough to even get here. A pause. Then. And because if I'm going to be trapped in a mountain myth situation, I want to know she's safe. Something shifted in Nuri's expression at that. Not resistance. Recognition of importance. I can take you, she said. Alexis frowned. In the middle of the day, the villagers will. At night, Nuri interrupted. A pause. Then softer. They will not see you. Alexis hesitated. That sounds like a threat. It is a promise. Night came too quickly. Or maybe Alexis just didn't notice the hours passing anymore. Nuri moved differently after dark. Less presence. More absence shaped into motion. They slipped through the village without sound. No firelight caught them. No eyes turned. It was as if the world simply agreed not to look. Alexis didn't like how easy it was. But she didn't stop walking. The cabin at the edge of the village was still there. Same wood. Same tired roof. Same quiet that felt older than either of them. Nuri stopped outside. You will go in alone, she said. Alexis looked at her. You're not coming? Nuri shook her head once. If she sees me first, she will not speak freely. That made sense in a way Alexis didn't like. She stepped forward. Paused. Looked back once. Nuri was watching her. Not predator. Not queen. Just waiting. Alexis exhaled. Then went inside. Elena was already awake. Of course she was. She didn't look surprised. That was the first warning. You brought her anyway, Elena said quietly. Alexis froze. You knew I was coming back? Elena didn't answer that. Instead, she looked past Alexis. To the thing outside. Alexis stiffened. Nuri. Elena's expression tightened slightly at the name. Then. So, it is true. Alexis stepped forward. What is true? Elena finally looked at her properly. And her voice changed. Not softer. Heavier. I hid you from the mountain for your entire life. Alexis blinked. You hid me from a mountain? Elena shook her head. From what lives in it? A pause. Then. From her kind. Silence. Alexis's voice dropped. What are you talking about? Elena stepped closer now. And for the first time, fear showed through her control. Not of Alexis. Of consequence. You are not random, Alexis. A pause. You are the last anchor bloodline. Alexis stared at her. That is not a thing. It was never meant to be known. Elena continued, quieter now. Your bloodline was tied to the stability of what sleeps under that mountain. Alexis shook her head slightly. No. Elena didn't stop. When you touched her, it did not just weaken the curse. A pause. It reacted to you. Alexis felt something cold settle in her chest. Elena's voice dropped further. If you leave her now, the balance will collapse again. Silence stretched. Then Elena finished softly. And this time, it will not sleep again. Outside, Neri waited, unmoving, listening, not to sound, to consequence. And for the first time since Alexis had known her, Nuri looked uncertain about what she was allowed to want. Chapter 12. Blood that chose something else. Elena didn't rush the truth. She never had. Truth to her had always been something that needed to be carried carefully, like a flame you didn't trust your own hands to hold for too long. Alexis stood in the middle of the room, like movement itself had betrayed her. Outside, Nuri waited in the dark. Not entering. Not leaving. Just there. Elena followed Alexis's stare for a moment, then closed the curtain halfway. Not to hide Nuri. To soften the world between them. You don't understand what you're standing in the middle of, Elena said quietly. Alexis let out a short breath. That's becoming a pattern. Elena didn't smile. This is older than patterns. Alexis turned slightly. I don't care how old it is. I didn't ask for it. That landed. Elena nodded once. I know. A pause. Then softer. Neither did your mother. Alexis frowned. My mother is not part of this. Elena's eyes lifted. She was the original part of this. Silence tightened instantly. Not dramatic. Heavy. Like the room remembered something it had been trying not to say. Elena stepped closer to the table. Before you were born, she said slowly, your mother was meant to be the anchor. Alexis shook her head immediately. No. No, don't do that. Don't make me part of some inherited destiny story. Elena didn't flinch. I am not making it. I am telling you what already was. A pause. Then. She was the one the mountains stabilized around. Alexis gave a bitter laugh. So, I'm what? Replacement stock? Elena's voice sharpened slightly. No. A beat. Then quieter. You are what remains. Alexis looked away. That landed differently. Too close. Too final. Elena continued carefully. Your mother met your father. Alexis's jaw tightened. I know that part. Yes, Elena said. But you don't know what it cost. A pause. Then. She chose him. Silence. Alexis blinked. So? Elena looked at her directly. So, she chose a human life instead of the bond that kept the mountain stable. That sentence didn't land like judgment. It landed like fracture. Alexis shook her head. That's not a choice someone should have to make. No, Elena agreed quietly. But she made it anyway. A pause. Then softer. And when she left, the balance broke. Alexis exhaled sharply. That's not my responsibility. Elena didn't argue. For a moment, she simply watched her. Then, I am not asking you to accept responsibility. Alexis frowned. Feels like you are. Elena's voice dropped. I am telling you what exists whether you accept it or not. Outside, something shifted. Not sound. Presence. Nuri moved slightly. Still waiting. Still listening. Alexis rubbed a hand over her face. So, what? I just step into her place and fix what my mother left behind. Elena's expression softened, just slightly. No. Alexis looked up sharply. No. Elena shook her head. You are not your mother. A pause. Then. You are what the bond reacts to now. That word again. Bond. Alexis hated how it kept returning like it belonged in her vocabulary. Elena stepped closer. Your mother resisted it, she said quietly. She fought it. She tried to live around it. A pause. Then she chose love. Alexis went still. Elena continued. And the mountain lost its stabilizer. Silence stretched. Not empty. Full of consequence. Alexis whispered. So, what does that make me? Elena held her gaze. You are the first one it has responded to instead of resisted. A pause. Then softer. And that is why it quiets around you. Alexis shook her head slowly. I don't want that. Elena's voice softened. I know. Alexis stepped back slightly. I didn't choose this. Elena nodded. I know. A beat. Then, quieter. But it chose you anyway. Silence. Heavy. Living. Outside, Nuri lowered her head slightly. Something in her chest tightened, not pain, not hunger. Recognition of distance. Of possibility. Of loss. Inside, Alexis's voice dropped. So, what do I do then? Stay here forever because my bloodline is a structural component of a mountain's emotional stability. Elena almost smiled at the phrasing. Almost. But her voice stayed steady. No. Alexis blinked. Elena stepped closer. You choose. A pause. Then. But every choice will cost something now. Alexis looked toward the door. Toward the night. Toward Nuri. And for the first time, the truth wasn't abstract. It was felt. That touch. That moment. The way something in her body had responded like it finally understood a language it was never taught. She swallowed. It's not fair. Elena nodded. No. A pause. Then softer. It never was. Outside, Nuri finally moved. One step closer to the door. Not entering. Not forcing. Just nearer. As if proximity alone might explain what words could not yet hold. Inside, Alexis whispered. If I stay, I'm trapped. Elena shook her head. If you leave, she destabilizes. A pause. Then softer, almost unbearable. And if neither of you choose, the mountain learns hunger again. Silence. A final kind of silence. Alexis closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, something had changed, not resolution, not acceptance. Awareness. Of weight. Of connection. Of that impossible moment when Nuri had touched her and everything had paused like it was listening. She exhaled slowly. I need time. Elena nodded immediately. Yes. A pause. Then Elena added quietly. But she is already learning you. Outside. Nuri waited. And for the first time, she was no longer only wondering what Alexis was. She was wondering what it meant if Alexis left. Chapter 13. The shape of staying even when you don't mean to. Alexis did not come back because she chose to. She came back because leaving felt like something the air itself refused to agree with. Not force. Not chains. Just consequence sitting quietly behind every step she tried to take away from the mountain. Nuri met her at the edge of the lower path. No grand arrival. No words at first. Just that steady, watchful stillness that had started to feel less like a threat and more like expectation. Alexis adjusted the strap of her bag. I hate that you're standing there like you knew I'd return. Nuri tilted her head slightly. I did not know. A pause. Then, honest. I hoped. Alexis scoffed lightly. That's worse. It is more uncertain. Exactly. They walked back up together. Side by side. Not touching. Not avoiding. Just occupying the same stretch of silence, like two people negotiating space without signing anything official. Alexis glanced at her. So, what now? You brood at me until the mountain behaves. Nuri's mouth twitched faintly. I do not brood. You absolutely brood. You brood with architectural intent. Nuri considered that. I observe. That's just brooding with better vocabulary. A beat. Your vocabulary is often inaccurate. Alexis smirked. Yet here you are, keeping up. That landed. Something flickered in Nuri's expression, quick, untrained. Almost amusement. Almost softness. Then gone again. The moment Alexis stepped fully into the mountain's threshold, she felt it. Not pressure this time. Alignment. Like something exhaled in relief without asking permission. Nuri noticed immediately. Her gaze sharpened. It quiets. Alexis blinked. What? When you are here, Nuri said slowly, it stabilizes faster. Alexis frowned. That sounds like I'm a maintenance tool. Nuri shook her head. No. A pause. Then, quieter. It sounds like you are necessary. Alexis opened her mouth. Closed it again. That word shouldn't have landed the way it did. But it did. As they descended deeper, something changed in Nuri. Subtle at first. A tightening in her shoulders. A flicker of heat behind her eyes. Alexis noticed before she understood. You're doing the thing, she said cautiously. Nuri exhaled slowly. I am managing it. That's not what I asked. A pause. Then Nuri admitted. It wants to rise. Alexis slowed slightly. The dragon part. Nuri nodded once. Yes. Alexis looked at her. Because I'm here? Another pause. Then softer. Yes. That should have scared her. It did. But not in the way she expected. Because Nuri didn't step away from her. She didn't create distance. She stayed, fighting it in place. Not alone anymore. They reached the inner platforms. The air here always felt slightly wrong. But now it was different. Less fractured. More listening. Alexis set her bag down and exhaled. So, what do I do? Sit quietly and hope I'm emotionally stabilizing your inner apocalypse. Nuri looked at her. You are already doing it. Alexis blinked. I didn't agree to that job description. I did not assign it. Feels assigned. Nuri's expression softened slightly. It is observed. That's still suspicious. A low tremor moved through the stone. Nuri's body shifted instantly. Not fully. Not violently. Just the beginning of something instinctive. Alexis noticed. She stepped closer without thinking. Nuri froze slightly. The shift stalled. Like something inside her recalculated. The tremor eased. Alexis blinked. Okay, that's new. Nuri exhaled slowly. It stops faster when you are near. Alexis looked at her. Is that good? Nuri hesitated. I do not know yet. That honesty again. Unarmored. Days began to blur after that. Not in time. In rhythm. Alexis would leave. Nuri would shift. Alexis would return. Nuri would settle. Less dragon each time. Not gone. But quieter. Like a storm learning it didn't need to fill the sky to exist. One evening, Alexis found Nuri sitting alone on the edge of the upper ridge. Human form. Shoulders tense. Eyes distant. Alexis sat beside her without asking. You're getting better at not turning into a giant nightmare lizard, she said lightly. Nuri didn't look at her. I do not like that phrasing. It's accurate. It is incomplete. Alexis tilted her head. Explain. A pause. Then Nuri quietly. I am not becoming less dangerous. Another pause. I am becoming less alone. That landed differently. Alexis didn't respond immediately. Wind moved through the ridge. Far below, the mountain breathed in slow, steady patterns now. Not hunger. Not rage. Something closer to awareness. Alexis spoke softly. You were alone before this? Nuri didn't answer immediately. Then, for a long time. A pause. Then, quieter. Long enough that I forgot what not alone felt like. Alexis glanced at her. And now? Nuri finally looked at her. Now. That was the word she used. Not answer. Not declaration. Just present tense. Something shifted between them then. Not dramatic. Not sudden. Just recognition settling into place where resistance used to live. Alexis looked away first. Annoying, she muttered. Nuri's mouth curved faintly. What is? That you're starting to make sense. A pause. Then Nuri. That is dangerous. Alexis huffed a small laugh. Tell me about it. Below them, the mountain remained steady. And for the first time, it wasn't held together by fear. It was held together by presence. Two of them. Still learning. Still unsettled. Still refusing to fully name what was forming between them. But no longer able to pretend it wasn't there. Chapter 14. Fruit, fire, and things that should not feel like home. Alexis had decided, very firmly, that she did not need supervision while cutting fruit. Nuri had decided, equally firmly, that Alexis was a walking incident waiting for a moment of distraction. So naturally, they were both in the kitchen. Which meant disaster was already halfway dressed. "You are holding that knife incorrectly," Nuri said. Alexis didn't look up from the cutting board. "I am holding it in a way that allows fruit to become edible. That feels correct to me." Nuri stepped closer. "That is not the correct angle. It is fruit, not diplomacy. It is sharp." "So am I emotionally," Alexis replied. A pause. Nuri considered that. "I do not think that is comparable." "It absolutely is." Alexis shifted the fruit slice, concentrating. Behind her, Nuri hovered like a storm that had learned restraint, but not relaxation. "You are standing too close," Alexis said. "I am observing." "You are looming." "I am not looming." "You are emotionally looming." Nuri paused. "I do not know what that means." Alexis finally looked at her over her shoulder. "It means you are 3 seconds away from intervening in my life choices." Nuri nodded once. "Yes. That's not the point." "It is the accurate point." Alexis exhaled sharply. "Go sit down before you start supervising my breathing rate." Nuri did not sit down. Of course she didn't. She leaned instead. Watching. Always watching. Alexis muttered under her breath. "This is why people move out." "I heard that," Nuri said. "Good." The knife slipped. It was small. A simple mistake. Barely even a sound. But Alexis froze instantly as a bead of blood surfaced at her fingertip. "Oh," she said. Nuri moved before thought finished forming. Not walking. Not stepping. Just there. The space between them collapsed in a heartbeat. Alexis blinked. "I'm fine." But Nuri had already taken her hand. The moment contact happened, the world reacted. Not loudly. Not violently. But immediately. Heat flickered under Alexis's skin. Cold answered under Nuri's. Not opposing. Not fighting. Recognizing. A sharp pulse of both fire and frost burst outward for half a breath, curling through the air like something startled awake. The fruit on the counter trembled slightly. The knife clinked softly against wood. And then stillness. Nuri stared at Alexis's finger. Then at Alexis. Then back at the tiny cut. "You are injured," she said quietly. Alexis blinked. "It is literally a paper cut's angrier cousin." Nuri did not look reassured. Her grip tightened slightly. "Too protective. Too immediate. You should not bleed." "That is a bold biological stance." Nuri ignored that entirely. "I will correct this." Alexis laughed once under her breath. "You're going to correct a cut?" "Yes. That's not how bodies work." "It should be." But Nuri didn't let go. And Alexis didn't pull away. Because something had already shifted again. That familiar strange balance. Where pain didn't escalate. It softened. The air around them steadied. Like the mountain itself was listening through distance. Nuri noticed first. Her expression changed slightly. "It is stopping," she murmured. Alexis frowned. "What is?" "The instability." Alexis looked at their joined hands. "Oh. A beat. That's concerningly convenient." Nuri finally looked at her properly. "It is you." Alexis sighed. "Everything is always me lately." Nuri's voice lowered slightly. "No." A pause. Then softer. "It is you with me." That landed differently. Alexis leaned slightly against the counter. "You know," she said, trying to regain normality, "most people just use plasters." Nuri tilted her head. "I do not have plasters." "I can tell." "I have stability." "That sounds like a threat in your tone." "It is not." A pause. Then Nuri added, "It is an offering." Alexis looked at her for a long moment, then at her own hand still held in Nuri's. "You're terrifying when you care," she said quietly. Nuri didn't deny it. "I am learning how." Alexis huffed a small laugh. "That's not comforting either. It is honest. Stop leading with honesty. It's emotionally inconvenient." Nuri's mouth curved faintly. "I will consider your complaint." "You won't." "I will not." The cut had already stopped bleeding, which was ridiculous. And impossible. And somehow normal now. Alexis flexed her fingers slowly. "You know this is how horror stories start," she muttered. Nuri raised an eyebrow. "This is how what stories start. Don't worry about it." "I am worrying about it. I can tell." Nuri finally released her hand. Slowly. Reluctantly. Like something inside her didn't want to. Alexis noticed that too. Of course she did. She looked away first, clearing her throat. "I'm still finishing the fruit." Nuri nodded. "I will stand further back." "That would be appreciated." A pause. Then Nuri added, "I will not be far." Alexis sighed. "I noticed." A beat of silence passed between them. Not awkward. Not empty. Domestic. Almost dangerously so. Then Alexis muttered, "You're really just going to hover forever, aren't you?" Nuri considered that seriously. "Yes." Alexis gave a small, defeated laugh. "Yeah, that tracks." And for the first time, it didn't feel like being watched by something ancient. It felt like being kept safe by someone who didn't yet know how to do it gently, but was trying anyway. Chapter 15. Night has a pulse, and it learns her name. The mountain never slept. It only changed its kind of silence. That night, it felt wrong in Alexis's bones before she even opened her eyes. Like the air had leaned in too close. Like memory had grown teeth. She was running. Not through corridors or streets or anything that made sense. Through smoke. Through heat that wasn't fire but behaved like it had opinions. Somewhere behind her, something massive moved, slow, patient, certain. Not chasing. Following. That was worse. Because chasing implies urgency. Following implies ownership. Alexis stumbled in the dream. The ground didn't catch her. It never did. Her breath burned in her throat, too thin, too sharp. And then she heard it, a sound like stone remembering how to scream. And a voice beneath it. Not speaking words. Calling. Not her name. Something older than her name. She woke with a sharp inhale. Darkness. Silence. The kind of silence that presses its hand over your mouth and waits to see if you'll struggle. Alexis sat up fast. Heart hammering. Sweat cold against her skin. "I'm fine," she whispered automatically into the dark, like the room had asked. It hadn't. But something in her still answered anyway. The door opened. Not slowly. Not carefully. Instantly. Nuri was there. Already moving. Already close. No hesitation. No question. Just arrival. Alexis blinked. How did you?" But Nuri didn't answer. She was already at the bed. Already sitting beside her. Already pulling her in. It wasn't gentle at first. It was instinct. Protective reflex sharpened by something older than thought. Nuri wrapped her arms around Alexis like she was preventing the world from finishing a sentence it had started. Alexis froze. Her breath caught. "Nuri?" Nuri's voice was low. "You were not here." Alexis frowned slightly. "I was literally in bed." "You were not here," Nuri repeated. And that difference mattered more than language could explain. Alexis exhaled shakily. The nightmare still clung to her edges. Still vibrating under her skin. But Nuri was warm. Unnatural warmth. Steady. Alive in a way that didn't argue with darkness, it simply outlasted it. And Alexis, without thinking, rested her hand against Nuri's chest. A heartbeat. Strong. Present. Real. Not memory. Not loss. Not smoke. Just now. Her breath stuttered slightly. "You're real," she whispered. Nuri didn't respond. She was still holding her too tightly, like letting go might unravel something important. The nightmare loosened its grip. Not because it was gone, but because something else was louder now. Alexis didn't plan it. There was no decision point. No thought that said this is what you should do. Only proximity. Only pulse. Only the strange, unbearable relief of not being alone inside fear. She leaned forward and kissed her. It wasn't careful. It wasn't strategic. It wasn't even fully conscious. It was collision dressed as instinct. Nuri froze completely. Every part of her went still at once. Like the mountain itself had stopped breathing. For one suspended second, nothing moved. Not air. Not thought. Not time. Then something in Nuri shifted. Not outward. Inward. Like a sealed door suddenly realizing it had always had a handle. A sharp breath left her. Not rejection. Not shock. Recognition without language. Alexis pulled back immediately. Her eyes widened. Sorry, I don't know why But Nuri didn't let her finish. Because Nuri had never been kissed. Not like that. Not as choice. Not as reassurance. Not as this. Her grip tightened again, but differently now. Less protection. More anchoring. Her forehead lowered slightly, almost touching Alexis's. And for the first time, her voice sounded unsteady. "Do you do that often?" Alexis blinked. "What? Kiss people when I'm half asleep and emotionally compromised?" "No, I don't have a schedule for that." A pause. Nuri's eyes stayed on her. Still processing. Still changed. "It changed something," she said quietly. Alexis swallowed. "That's usually the complaint." Nuri shook her head slightly. "No." A pause. Then softer, almost disoriented. It shook everything. Under Alexis's hand, Nuri's heartbeat was still steady. But now it wasn't just steady. It was aware of itself. Like it had learned it could be felt. Like it had learned it mattered. Nuri exhaled slowly. "You were afraid," she said. Alexis gave a short laugh. "Yeah, that was kind of the theme." Nuri's voice lowered. "I came because of that." A pause. "I did not think. I only moved." Alexis looked at her. "You do that a lot." "Yes. That's dangerous." Nuri nodded once. "I know." A beat. Then, quieter. "But I do not want you to be alone inside fear." That landed differently. Not grand. Not poetic. Simple. Bare. True. Alexis's hand stayed on Nuri's chest. Still feeling that heartbeat. Still grounded in it. Her voice softened. "You're really bad at boundaries, you know that?" Nuri considered that seriously. "Yes." A pause. Then, "I am improving." Alexis huffed a small, shaky laugh. "Not fast enough." Nuri's mouth curved faintly. "I will continue." Outside the room, the mountain was still. But not empty. Not hungry. Not roaring. Just listening differently now. As if it had learned a new language and didn't yet know what to do with it. And inside the dark room, Alexis stayed pressed against Nuri's heartbeat. While Nuri stayed pressed against the fact that something in her had just learned what being chosen without force felt like. And neither of them moved away. Chapter 16. The language Nuri does not yet have. Morning arrived like it hadn't been consulted. Soft light slid through the mountain's edges, uninvited but tolerated. Inside the chamber, everything was still slightly displaced. Not broken. Not fixed. Just different. Like reality had been nudged during the night and was still deciding where it belonged. Alexis sat on the edge of the bed, hair slightly disheveled, staring into a cup she wasn't really drinking from. Nuri stood near the wall. Too still. Too aware of herself. Which, for her, was new. And inconvenient. Alexis finally glanced at her. You've been standing there for 10 minutes. Nuri blinked once. I am observing. You're hovering. I am stationary. That doesn't help your case. Nuri considered this seriously. I am stationary in your direction. Alexis sighed. That's worse. Silence settled again. But it wasn't comfortable silence. It was loaded silence. The kind that remembers what happened last night and refuses to pretend it didn't. Nuri's gaze drifted briefly to Alexis's mouth. Then away immediately. Then back again. Then away again. Like her thoughts were physically misplacing themselves. Alexis noticed. Of course she did. What? She asked slowly. Nuri hesitated. That alone was unusual enough to feel like weather change. I do not understand something, Nuri said finally. Alexis leaned back slightly. That's a growing list. Nuri ignored that. You did something last night, she said. Alexis froze slightly. I'm going to need you to be more specific than that. Nuri tilted her head. The contact. Alexis exhaled. Oh. That? A pause. Yeah. Nuri stepped slightly forward. Not close. But closer than before. I do not have a name for it. Alexis blinked. For kissing. Nuri nodded once. Yes. The word landed in the room like something newly discovered. Alexis rubbed her forehead. Okay, that's what it's called. Kissing. Nuri repeated it slowly. Kissing. Yes. A pause. Nuri tested it internally like a blade she hadn't decided how to hold yet. Then, I want it again. Alexis choked slightly on absolutely nothing. You what? Nuri didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just repeated, simpler this time. I want it again. A pause. Then, as if adding clarification mattered. The thing you did. Alexis stared at her. Then laughed once under her breath. That is not how people ask for that. Nuri frowned slightly. How do they ask? Alexis opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Usually with more emotional awareness and less battlefield directness. Nuri considered that. I have emotional awareness. Alexis raised an eyebrow. You do not. Nuri corrected immediately. I am developing emotional awareness. That is not the same thing. It is progress. A silence again. Different this time. Thicker. Less awkward. More charged. Nuri's voice lowered slightly. When you did it, she said carefully, my thoughts stopped splitting. Alexis went still. Nuri continued, slower now. I did not feel fractured. A pause. I want that again. That softened something in Alexis's expression. Not the humor. Something deeper underneath it. She looked away briefly. You think that's what it was? Nuri nodded. Yes. Alexis hesitated. Then exhaled. It's not really about stopping thoughts. Nuri's gaze sharpened slightly. Then what is it? Alexis shifted a little. Uncomfortable now. Not with Nuri. With naming things too clearly. It's connection, she said finally. A pause. Then quieter. Or sometimes just wanting to be close without fighting it. Nuri absorbed that. Slowly. Carefully. Like it might rearrange something inside her if held incorrectly. Close, she repeated. Alexis nodded. Yeah. Nuri's eyes stayed on her. I was close. Alexis gave a small, breathy laugh. Very. Another pause. Then Nuri stepped forward again. Still hesitant. Still learning restraint like it was a language spoken in half notes. If I ask incorrectly, she said, will it not happen again? Alexis looked at her. That depends on the incorrectness. Nuri frowned slightly. This is not efficient. No, Alexis said softly. It's not. A beat. Then Nuri tried again. I would like the contact. Alexis tilted her head. That sounds like ordering furniture. Nuri's expression tightened slightly. That is not helpful. I know. Silence. Then Nuri added, quieter. The kind that made your heartbeat change. Alexis froze slightly. That detail mattered more than it should have. You noticed that? Nuri nodded. I notice everything that changes you. That landed differently again. Heavier. More honest than either of them had prepared for. Alexis stood slowly. Set the cup down. Looked at her. You're going to make this complicated, she said. Nuri replied immediately. It already is. A pause. Then, softer. I simply do not yet know the rules. Alexis stepped closer. Nuri did not step back. This time she held still on purpose. Learning. Trying. Alexis studied her for a moment. Then exhaled. You don't ask for it like that, she said quietly. Nuri nodded once. I am learning. Alexis hesitated. Then, softer. You also don't demand it. Nuri's voice dropped. I am not demanding. A pause. Then, almost uncertain. I am requesting incorrectly. That made Alexis smile despite herself. Yeah, she murmured. That sounds more accurate. The air between them shifted again. Familiar now. Dangerously familiar. Not new anymore. Just uncharted in a different way. Nuri spoke softly. May I learn the correct way? Alexis looked at her. And this time didn't answer immediately. Because something in Nuri's expression wasn't hunger. It wasn't power. It was wanting without knowing how to hold it. And that changed everything. Outside, the mountain remained quiet. But inside, something between them had learned its first name. Chapter 17. How love learns its own name. The word love didn't land cleanly in the room. It didn't crash. It didn't glow. It simply settled. Like something that had been circling above them for a long time finally deciding to sit down. Nuri stood very still after Alexis spoke. As if movement might disturb the definition. Kissing, Nuri repeated carefully, is born from feelings. Alexis leaned against the table, watching her. Yeah. Nuri frowned slightly. What kind of feelings? Alexis exhaled. That's the problem. There isn't just one kind. That clearly did not help. Nuri's expression tightened. Then how do you know when it is correct? Alexis gave a short laugh. You don't. Not at first. That made Nuri pause. She did not like that answer. Not because it was wrong. Because it was uncertain. Alexis pushed herself upright slightly. Look, she said softer now, you don't treat it like a command or a correction. It's not something you request like stability or mountain balance or whatever system your brain is still trying to build. Nuri blinked once. I do not build systems. Alexis raised an eyebrow. You absolutely do. A pause. I structure understanding, Nuri corrected. That's a system. Nuri didn't argue this time. Just absorbed it. Alexis stepped closer. Not into her space. Just nearer. Enough to make the air between them feel intentional. Kissing happens when someone wants to be close, she said. Not because they need something fixed. Not because they're stabilizing anything. Because they feel something that doesn't fit anywhere else. Nuri's gaze sharpened slightly. This is inefficient. Alexis smirked. Yeah, that's love. That made Nuri go quiet. Properly quiet. The kind of quiet that meant she was not just listening anymore. She was trying to translate. Alexis continued, voice gentler now. And it's not taking. Nuri looked at her immediately at that. Not understanding the word before it even fully formed. Alexis held her gaze. It's not you taking something from me, she said carefully. It's me choosing to give it. And you choosing to receive it. Without force. Without pressure. Without expectation. A pause. Both of us want it. That's the point. Something shifted in Nuri's expression. Small. But real. Both, she repeated. Alexis nodded. Yeah. Nuri's voice lowered. That is unfamiliar. I figured. Silence stretched again. But it was no longer empty. It was learning-shaped. Nuri looked down briefly. then back up. If I wanted it, she said slowly, how would I know it is not wrong? Alexis softened at that immediately. You wouldn't know right away. Nuri frowned. That is unhelpful again. Alexis smiled faintly. I'm consistent at least. She stepped closer this time. Close enough now that Nuri had to tilt her head slightly to keep eye contact. You'd know, Alexis said softly, because it wouldn't feel like taking. It would feel like wanting someone specifically. Not just the feeling. The person. Nuri's eyes didn't move away. You, she said quietly. Alexis blinked. Then exhaled slowly. Yeah, she admitted. Me. The room went still in a different way after that. Not tension. Recognition. Alexis looked away first this time. A small, almost reluctant smile tugging at her mouth. You know, she murmured, I didn't exactly plan to come back here. Nuri tilted her head slightly. You returned. Not willingly. A pause. Then softer. At first. That made Nuri go still. Alexis continued. I thought I was stuck here because of that anchor thing. Because of responsibility. Because of bloodlines and prophecy and all the dramatic nonsense that follows me around like a bad reputation. A beat. But that's not why I'm still here right now. Nuri's gaze sharpened slightly. Alexis looked back at her. I stayed because of you. That landed cleanly. No echo. No distortion. Just truth. Nuri didn't speak immediately. When she did, it was quiet. Because I stabilize you. Alexis shook her head. No. A pause. Then softer, more certain. Because I want to. That did something to Nuri. Not outwardly dramatic. But internally unmistakable. Like something vast had just been named without permission and hadn't broken because of it. Alexis exhaled slowly. And I think, she added, almost reluctantly, I'm going to teach you what love is. Nuri blinked once. You are. Alexis nodded. Yeah. A pause. Then she added, lightly. You're terrible at it right now. That earned the smallest flicker of something almost like amusement from Nuri. I am aware. Alexis smiled properly now. But you're learning. Nuri's voice softened. Yes. A beat. Then, quieter. Will it always feel like this? Alexis tilted her head. Like what? Nuri searched for the word. Then, uncertainty that does not harm. Alexis considered that. Then shrugged gently. No. A pause. It gets weirder. And softer. And louder. And quieter. All at once. Nuri frowned slightly. That is not reassuring. Alexis stepped closer again. Good, she said softly. It's not supposed to be. The space between them didn't demand anything now. It simply existed. And for the first time, Nuri didn't treat that space like something to correct. Alexis looked at her. Come here, she said gently. Not a command. Not a correction. An invitation. Nuri moved. Careful. Present. Learning. And when she reached Alexis this time, she didn't take. She waited. Just long enough for Alexis to choose. Chapter 18. The quiet after learning your name. The mountain noticed the change first. Not in a loud way. Not in a shaking world kind of way. More like something inside it stopped holding its breath. Alexis felt it as soon as she entered the chamber. The usual pressure that lived in the walls was softer. Like the place had stopped arguing with itself. She slowed her steps. Okay, she murmured. That's new. Nuri watched her from across the room. Is it wrong? Alexis looked at her. No. It's just calmer. Nuri blinked once. Calmer is acceptable. Alexis huffed a small laugh. You say that like you're grading weather. I am learning its patterns. That tracks, unfortunately. Nuri stepped closer. Careful again. Always careful now in a way she hadn't been before. Not less powerful. Just more aware of what her power did when Alexis was near it. You're different, Nuri said. Alexis raised an eyebrow. I'm always different. That's kind of my personality. Nuri shook her head slightly. No. A pause. Not you. Her gaze softened just a fraction. You change what is inside me. That landed. Alexis didn't respond immediately. Instead, she studied Nuri for a moment, then exhaled. Yeah, she said quietly. I noticed. Nuri tilted her head. It is quieter. Alexis nodded. It is. A pause. Then softer. You're calmer. Nuri considered that. I am less fractured. Alexis corrected gently. Same thing, just less dramatic wording. Nuri accepted that without argument. A silence settled between them. Not empty. Not awkward. Just waiting. Alexis stepped closer first this time. Not because she had to. Because she wanted to see what would happen if she did. Nuri didn't move away. Didn't tighten. Didn't brace. Just watched her approach like something she was still learning how to receive. Alexis stopped in front of her. You know what's funny? She said softly. Nuri blinked. What? You used to be terrifying. A pause. Nuri considered this seriously. I still am. Alexis smiled faintly. Yeah, but now you're terrifying with emotional awareness. Nuri frowned. That sounds inefficient. It is. Alexis lifted a hand slowly. Paused. Let Nuri see it coming. Let Nuri choose. Nuri did not move away. So, Alexis touched her. Lightly. Not as correction. Not as stabilizer. Just contact. The effect was immediate. Not explosive. Not chaotic. A ripple. Like something inside Nuri adjusted its own center of gravity. Her shoulders loosened slightly. Her breathing deepened. And the air, somehow, became steadier. Alexis exhaled. There, she murmured. See? Nuri looked at her. What? When you're calm, Alexis said, everything else stops feeling like it's holding its breath. A pause. Nuri studied her. You're calmer also. Alexis blinked. Am I? Nuri nodded once. Yes. A beat. Then, with unsettling simplicity. When you are near me like this, you do not run inside yourself. Alexis let out a soft laugh. That's a very weird way to say I'm emotionally regulated. It is accurate. Unfortunately. Nuri lifted her hand slowly now. Mirroring. Learning. Not grabbing. Just offering contact back. Her fingers brushed Alexis's wrist. Careful. Measured. And the calm deepened again. Like the mountain exhaled in agreement. Alexis's voice softened. Yeah, she said quietly. That's what I meant. Nuri tilted her head slightly. What? This, Alexis said, gesturing faintly between them. You being calmer. Me being less on fire internally. Nuri considered that. Then, with startling clarity. So, you require the kissing. Alexis froze. Then burst into a short laugh. That is not what I said. Nuri didn't look away. It is correlated. That is not how emotions work. It is how I observe them. Alexis shook her head, still smiling. You're unbelievable. Nuri stepped a fraction closer. Explain correction. Alexis looked at her. You don't require it, she said gently. It's not a tool. It's not a stabilizer. Nuri waited. Alexis continued, softer now. It happens because we want it. And then everything else feels easier. Nuri absorbed that. Slowly. Then she nodded once. I understand. Alexis narrowed her eyes slightly. I don't think you do. Nuri replied without hesitation. I understand enough to propose a pattern. Alexis sighed. Oh no. Nuri continued, completely serious. As long as you keep doing the thing. Alexis interrupted immediately. The kissing is not the thing. Nuri corrected calmly. As long as you keep doing the kissing. A pause. Everything is calm. Alexis stared at her. Then laughed. Properly this time. Full, real, slightly disbelieving. You just negotiated emotional regulation like it's infrastructure. Nuri tilted her head. It is infrastructure. No, Alexis said, still laughing. It is not supposed to be infrastructure. Nuri considered that. Then, quietly. But it works. The room settled again. Warm. Alive. Steady in a way it had never been before. Alexis stepped closer once more. This time slower. Intentional. Nuri didn't move away. Didn't calculate. Just waited. Alexis reached up, brushing her fingers lightly along Nuri's jaw. You're learning dangerous things, she murmured. Nuri's voice softened. I am learning you. That stopped Alexis for a second. Then she exhaled slowly. Yeah, she said. That's probably worse. Nuri's mouth curved faintly. I am enjoying it. Alexis shook her head. Of course you are. And this time, when Alexis leaned in, Nuri met her halfway. Not taking. Not asking. Just choosing. Chapter 19. Things the body learns before the mind can translate them. The first kiss had been discovery. The second, recognition. This one did not behave like either. It deepened the way dusk deepens, without announcement, without permission, just a slow surrender of distance. Nuri did not understand the exact moment it changed. Only that Alexis was still there. Still close. Still real in a way that made everything else feel slightly less necessary. And then something in her chest shifted. Not pain. Not fire. Not instinct. Something quieter. Something leaning in. Alexis pulled back for the briefest breath. Just enough space to exist as two separate people again. Her forehead stayed close to Nuri's. You okay? She whispered. Nuri blinked. That question didn't compute quickly. Not because she didn't hear it. Because she didn't know which part of herself it was meant for. Yes, she said finally. A pause. Then, quieter. I think so. Alexis gave a soft exhale that might have been a laugh. That's not very convincing. Nuri frowned slightly. I do not have prior reference for this state. That's fair, Alexis murmured. But even as she spoke, she didn't move away. Neither did Nuri. That was the problem. Or the answer. She wasn't sure which yet. Nuri became aware of her own breathing. Not as survival. As awareness. Each inhale felt like it belonged to her. Each exhale felt like it belonged to the space between them. And Alexis was still there. Warm. Present. Unmistakably chosen. Nuri lifted a hand without thinking. Paused halfway. Looked at it. As if it had decided something without consulting her. Alexis watched. Go on, she said softly. Nuri's voice was quieter than usual. My body is doing things. Alexis tilted her head slightly. Yeah, I do not instruct it. That earned a faint smile from Alexis. Bodies are kind of notorious for that. Nuri's gaze stayed on her. It is not obeying me. Alexis softened. That's normal. Nuri frowned slightly. I do not like normal. You're in the wrong story then. Nuri's hand finally settled at Alexis's waist. Not gripping. Not pulling. Just there. Like she was testing whether the world would reject the contact. It didn't. Something in Nuri's chest tightened again, but differently now. Less like control slipping. More like something unfolding that had never been folded properly before. Her eyes dropped briefly to Alexis's mouth. Then lifted again immediately. As if she had looked at something too honest. Alexis noticed. Of course she did. You're thinking too hard, she murmured. Nuri answered immediately. I am not thinking. Alexis raised an eyebrow. That's worse. I am experiencing. That's also worse, just more poetic. A breath of silence passed between them. Then Nuri spoke, slower now. When you are close, she said, the noise in me becomes less sharp. Alexis's expression softened. Yeah, she whispered. That's kind of the point. Nuri hesitated. Then admitted, carefully. I do not want it to stop. That landed differently. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Honest enough to change the shape of the air. Alexis didn't move immediately. Just studied her. Then exhaled slowly. Okay, she said quietly. Nuri blinked. Okay. Alexis nodded slightly. Yeah. A pause. Then softer. That's called wanting. Nuri tested the word internally. Wanting. Alexis smiled faintly. Yeah, you're getting better at it. Nuri looked at her. I do not feel better. Alexis's smile deepened slightly. That's also part of it. The space between them tightened again, not with pressure, but with choice. Nuri leaned in first this time. Not uncertain now. Just following what had already begun to feel less like instinct and more like truth. Alexis met her halfway. The kiss resumed. Not urgent. Not chaotic. But deeper. Like something settling into its correct shape after being misfiled for centuries. And Nuri felt it again. That strange internal shift. The way her thoughts stopped scattering. The way her body stopped preparing for threat. The way something inside her stopped asking what is this and started quietly insisting stay. Her hand tightened slightly at Alexis's waist. Not possessive. Anchoring. A grounding she hadn't known she was missing until it appeared. When they finally parted again, Nuri didn't pull away immediately. She stayed close. Too close for silence to feel empty. Her voice came softer than before. I understand why you named it. Alexis blinked slightly. Named what? Nuri hesitated. Then. This. A pause. But I think it is still becoming its name. Alexis gave a small, breathy laugh. That sounds like you trying to sound wise. Nuri considered. I am trying to be accurate. Same thing for you. But even as Alexis teased, she didn't step back. Neither did Nuri. And in that space, between understanding and not yet understanding, something very real had started to take root. Not magic. Not curse. Not system. Just two people learning what it meant to not stop. Chapter 20. Where the mountain learns to breathe softly. It didn't happen all at once. The mountain didn't heal like a wound closing neatly. It softened. Like stone remembering it was never meant to be clenched forever. The tremors stopped first. Then the heat in the air thinned, as if the sky itself had stepped back to give the valley room to exist again. And then, slowly, almost skeptically, the water cleared. The villagers noticed in small ways. Bread rising better. Smoke no longer tasting like ash. Children sleeping through the night without waking to imagined firelight. At first, they called it luck. Then coincidence. Then, eventually, they stopped naming it at all. Because peace, once it returns, refuses to be examined too closely. The mountain no longer demanded anything. No voices. No pressure. No hunger moving beneath the stone like a restless thought. Just stillness. The kind that does not threaten. The kind that listens without asking anything back. Nuri stood at the edge of the upper ridge one morning, watching the valley below. Not as a queen. Not as a curse. Not even as a myth. Just as herself. Alexis came to stand beside her, carrying two cups that had taken on the permanent identity of ours, without discussion. People are starting to look less terrified, Alexis said. Nuri nodded slightly. They are forgetting fear. That's a good thing. It is unfamiliar, Nuri corrected. Alexis smirked. Same difference. Nuri glanced at her. I do not think it is. Alexis bumped her shoulder lightly. Let me have this moment. Nuri's mouth curved faintly. I will allow it. They didn't go back down immediately. There was no need anymore. The mountain had stopped being a problem to solve. It had become a place that simply existed alongside them. So, they stayed. At first, because it was easier. Then, because leaving started to feel unnecessary. Then, quietly, because staying felt right. Nuri learned small things. How fire should behave when it is not trying to burn the world. How silence can exist without warning. How touching someone can mean something other than correction, stabilization, or instinct. And Alexis learned something too. That she wasn't trapped. That she hadn't been. That she had stayed. They built slowly. A home not carved like a palace. Not forged like a fortress. Just wood, stone, and intention. Nuri insisted on reinforcing everything. Alexis insisted on making it livable. They compromised somewhere in the middle where walls were both structurally sound and emotionally questionable. Nuri still sometimes shifted without meaning to. A flicker of something ancient in her bones. But now Alexis would simply look at her and say, "Hey, breathe." And Nuri would. Because she knew what that meant now. One evening, as the sun sank into the valley like a warm apology, Alexis leaned against the doorway of their half-finished home. Nuri stood beside her. Not behind her. Not ahead. Just there. Alexis glanced at her. "You know," she said lightly, "this is probably not how prophecies usually end." Nuri considered that. "I am not certain what prophecies usually do." Alexis smiled. "Usually, they explode or get written down or ruin someone's life dramatically." Nuri nodded once. "This one did all of those things." Alexis laughed softly. "Fair." A quiet settled between them. Not empty. Not heavy. Just full. Nuri spoke first. "You are still here." Alexis tilted her head slightly. "Yeah." A pause. Nuri continued carefully. "You could have left." Alexis looked at her properly then. "Yeah," she said again. Then, softer. "I didn't." That landed cleanly. No echo. No debate. Just truth sitting where it belonged. Nuri studied her for a long moment. Then, "I am glad." Alexis smirked slightly. "That sounded like you almost understood emotion." Nuri corrected gently. "I understand it more now." Alexis nodded. "That's dangerous." Nuri glanced at her. "I am noticing that is a recurring theme with you." Alexis leaned in slightly. "Good influence." Nuri paused. Then, quietly, "You are the only influence I do not resist." That silence between them felt different now. Not charged. Not uncertain. Just lived in. Like a space that had been occupied long enough to stop asking who belonged there. Inside the house behind them, warmth waited. Outside, the mountain no longer argued with the sky. And between them, a dragon who had forgotten how to be alone. And a human who had once refused to stay, had built something neither of them had language for at the beginning. So, they used simpler words instead. Home. Epilogue. The house that learned how to stay warm. Years did not soften Nuri. They refined her. Like fire learning it didn't need to roar to be felt. Like a storm discovering it could become weather instead of warning. Their home on the mountain edge grew slowly, not just in structure, but in personality. Books piled up where weapons once would have been. Windows stayed open longer. Silence no longer felt like something waiting to happen. It just rested. Nuri read everything. Not selectively. Not politely. Completely. Books on affection. On human emotion. On love described in 1,000 clumsy, beautiful ways by people who had also not known what they were doing. She took notes. She underlined aggressively. She misinterpreted often. And she tried everything anyway. Alexis would find her sometimes in the early mornings, sitting very seriously at the table with a book titled On Intimacy and Emotional Expression Across Cultures. Nuri would look up and say, "This says prolonged eye contact is meaningful." Alexis, pouring tea, would reply, "It is also uncomfortable if done like you're interrogating me." Nuri would nod. "I will adjust." "You say that every time." "And I do adjust." "You adjust into something slightly more intense." Nuri considered that. That is also adjustment. Kissing never became less important to Nuri. It simply became more familiar. Which somehow made it worse. In the best way. She would still pause mid-task sometimes, watching Alexis from across the room with that quiet focus she never fully lost, and say, "I would like to kiss you now." Alexis would sigh dramatically. "At least you ask." Nuri would step closer. "I have improved." "You have not improved enough to stop saying it like a formal proposal." "It is still accurate." And Alexis never stopped pretending she was mildly inconvenienced by all of it. But she never moved away. Not once. She would lean into door frames, arms crossed, smirking when Nuri tried new techniques from her books. "Is that one of your emotional bonding exercises again?" "Yes." "And who taught you that one?" "A couple who apparently resolved conflict through synchronized breathing." Alexis would pause. "Did it work?" Nuri would consider. "I believe they were fictional." "That tracks." Still, Nuri kept trying. Not because she lacked understanding anymore, but because she had discovered something far more dangerous than power. The desire to be closer than she already was. Some evenings, she would simply appear behind Alexis while she was reading and lean down to press a kiss to her temple. No announcement. No request. Just certainty. Alexis would hum softly without looking up. "You're getting bold again." Nuri would answer quietly. "I am maintaining equilibrium." "That is not equilibrium." "It feels like it." And Alexis, despite herself, would always soften at that. Because Nuri had once been something vast and unreachable. Now she was something that chose closeness on purpose. Again. And again. And again. At night, when the mountain outside had fully settled into its quiet breathing, they would sit together near the hearth. Nuri would read aloud sometimes, still slightly careful with emotion-heavy passages. Alexis would interrupt frequently. Not to correct. Just to tease. "That sentence is doing too much. It is expressing grief. It is overachieving grief." Nuri would pause. "I will note that." "You absolutely will not." "I already have." Later, when the books were closed and the world had shrunk back to just them and the firelight, Nuri would look at Alexis with that same steady attention she had always had. Only now it held something softer beneath it. Something learned. Something chosen. "I have a request," Nuri would say. Alexis would sigh immediately. "Of course you do." Nuri would step closer. "I would like to kiss you." Alexis would glance at her. "You could just do it." Nuri would shake her head. "I prefer the correct method now." Alexis would groan lightly. "Your correct method is just emotional negotiation with extra steps." Yes, that was rhetorical agreement. "I still agree." And Alexis would always, eventually, give in. Because she loved her. Because she always had, somewhere between fear and laughter and that first impossible night where everything changed shape. She would tilt her head up slightly and say, "Fine. But you're reading less of those books. You're getting ideas." Nuri would respond immediately. "I am getting understanding." "That's worse." "It is better." And then she would kiss her anyway. Carefully. Like learning something holy that never stopped being new. And the mountain, once a place of hunger and burning myth, would continue to exist in the background of their lives. No longer a warning. No longer a wound. Just a home that had learned, slowly and stubbornly, how to hold two people who refused to leave each other. And in that quiet, stubborn love, nothing ended. It only stayed. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and like this video and follow me for more stories. You are always welcome here, and leave me a comment or a thumbs up, just letting me know if you like the story and would like more, or is there perhaps an idea that you would like to share or let me write for you.